Good evening. I will call our council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, December 9th. Thank you all for being here in attendance. We have a full agenda, including swearing in our new council members. The first thing that we are going to do this evening is, as we've talked about in the past, we're going to have some students lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. These students are from the Boys and Girls Club, and they are in the Youth Leadership Institute, and I had the pleasure of leading them in a mock council meeting within the last month. I think I mentioned it at our last work session. They're sponsored by the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Omicron Omega Omega chapter here in Southern Pines. We have Shaylee Martin and Nalacia Wright. If you two will please come to the front, and we'll just stand over here. Would you all mind if I join you? Okay, if everyone will stand, please. Thank you, girls, so much. And I will say something that Ms. Carter mentioned as we were talking about the Pledge of Allegiance. It is an honor, not a duty or responsibility to be here, but it's an honor that we all have the opportunity to do this. I appreciate your all's involvement in our council meeting. Thank you. All right, this evening we will start with our town manager's comments. We'll get through our consent agenda and last month's meeting minutes, and then our public comment, and then we will do the transition of council. So starting, Reagan Parsons for our manager's comments.
Thank you, Mayor Clement. As you stated, you do have a consent agenda that involves adopting minutes, and these are of meetings that the current sitting council participated in. In addition, your certification of the November 4th municipal election, and then one consent agenda item, and that being the donation of some surplus equipment to the Parkton, North Carolina Police Department. Specifically, if anybody watching did not get an opportunity to review the packet, this involves some mobile data terminal mounts in addition to some prisoner cage panels, and then lights specifically designed for the model year 2013 to 15 Caprice Ford Interceptor, or not Ford, but Interceptor model police cars. These are cars that were previously in our police fleet, have since been surplused and sent off, but we obviously remove equipment like this from those cars at such time. We don't foresee purchasing 2013 to 2015 models, so this is an opportunity to help out a smaller town department with some of those necessary pieces of equipment for their police force. You mentioned the organizational matters, and I'm sure we'll be speaking more on that when we get to them. And then you've got a budget amendment for a software purchase we'll talk about when we get to those action items, in addition to setting a public hearing for the annexation of the Humane Society construction project out on Highway 22. And then we'll move into our public hearings, and of course each of those will be introduced by the planning staff as we get to them, including an evidentiary hearing, that the holding of which will be dependent upon the outcome of item 8C. Without a rezoning under 8C, 9A will, I believe, become a moot point. With that, I'll take any questions, and otherwise request an adoption of the agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Manager Parsons?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. I know, we're just gonna be one of those nights. All right, so moving on to our consent agenda. You already went through most of what's on there. Do you want to go ahead and approve the consent agenda, or do you have anything else? Okay, is a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to public comment, we have Frederick Levine is our first speaker. I've got 2 people signed up, and if anyone else would like to speak, I'll provide opportunity after these 2.
That was pretty quick.
We try to be efficient.
Hey, good evening, everyone, staff. My name is Frederick Levine. I'm here area, the territory. We were both stationed at Fort Bragg. Spent almost 30 years in the military. She spent about 31, so she beat me by 1 year. So, but we're glad that we're here in this particular area. And we just recently started a business, and one of the business venture that we actually got into is in the medical billing and revenue cycle management. We are a certified service disabled or veteran-owned services, so we have all the requirements. So our sole purpose of what we're doing is to help a lot of medical practices with their billing, coding, because they go through a lot, especially with the medical industry is rapidly changing. So basically, our primary purpose, we have the software. We just want to help these practices generate revenue and just try to mitigate the hassle of a lot of things that they go through on a daily basis, because we want the doctors or the physician or practice to focus more on their patients more than just trying to do the hassle, and that's where we come in. Although we are virtual, we can work from anywhere in the United States, so we can work with local government, federal government, so forth and so on. So I just want to put us out there, and I know this is how we began the networking, so we wanted to take the opportunity to come out here and just present ourselves that way. Other than that, I would bring a presentation, but then I'll be speaking all day, but you don't have time to hear me. But we truly appreciate for allowing us to speak, to tell you about our business, and hopefully we're getting the opportunity to network. And if there are any doctors in here, feel free afterwards. We can kind of tell you about our service and what we do and how we can help you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Levine.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for choosing Summit Pines.
We now have Ms. Brower.
Good evening. I'm Dorothy Brower, 102 Eastman Road. My comments echo many of what you have heard since the most recent municipal elections, and you've heard it from across the state. I heard it just last night in Aberdeen from Mayor Farrell. It does concern us that we have low turnout of voters for our municipal elections. Some say it won't make any difference if they come, that business will be the same. Others say it's not important because it's not a federal election. I can't tell you how many people I argued with about that point. Many of us who are here on election day, whether we're for candidates or a party or working inside here, can almost predict who's going to show up and about what time those people show up. When I was in high school at West Southern Pines, our teachers encouraged us, and we went over town to observe elections before we could even vote, particularly when Felton Capel was a candidate, and we wanted to see that process. I was eager to come back here when Emmanuel Douglas was mayor, when the town celebrated the 100th, I think it was, to take a picture with him. So it was a time when youth was really, really interested and excited about the process. Tonight's participation of the young folks perhaps is something that we should look at more. And it's just my saying to you and to others, please let's get our citizens more involved and excited and caring about what happens locally, because it's the most important election, and they need to see that. So they won't keep complaining to people like me and saying, what are you all doing? My question is, what are we doing?
Thank you, Ms. Brower.
Thank you, Ms. Brower.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Come forward and just introduce yourself, name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Ryan Pascal, and I live at 330 Mile Away Lane, which is just off of North May Street. What I have to talk about is slightly complicated. BJ is bringing up a map for me. We are building in the Manly area of the ETJ. We took down about a half a dozen trailers that compose the trailer park right there. If I can show you what I'm talking about. These 8 lots here we're building on, there had been half a dozen trailers there. This is Ridge Street here, this is May Street.
Mr. Pascal, forgive me for interrupting you. We want to get you on the microphone because
I think if you'd like to, you can stand there, or she can hand you one that you can
Okay,
stand over there and
if I
speak
can
with.
hold it over there.
Yep, give me just a second. We'll grab it.
But I can tell you a little bit about the issues from here. If you'll notice, Braden is what I call a paper street, where it goes between me and my neighbor. And my neighbor has got that paper street completely covered up with old dilapidated cars. Thank you.
So just to clarify, that street that looks like it continues through is not there right now?
I'm not sure if this is working. You can hear me? Okay. Yeah, so this is Braden right here, and this would have been a road on the map that was printed, 120 years ago. Okay. So this neighbor here has got it covered up with junk cars here, and he also put a privacy fence along this right here to my property corner. And so the biggest reason this is a problem is because I have water along May Street, and I should have mentioned that I'm a builder. I have water along May Street, but I do not have water along Ridge Street. So this would be the most likely place to bring water through to the lots. We also have these 2 lots and this lot and 2 lots here. So in total, between these 4 and these 5, we have 9 lots that need water. And I've discussed this with James Mickle, and he's shown me a clear path that would make sense to do to come through here. So the reason I'm trying to get the town involved is because I'd like some assistance with getting the paper street cleared up. It's an eyesore. I do realize that this is somewhat of a legal matter because it needs to be designated who owns the property exactly. But I just need help from the town on that. Another way that I would like to ask the town for help on this is I would like town council to consider installing the water line at the town's expense. And let me tell you my logic there. If I build a house and I hook up to city water, but I do not hook up to sewer, I am not annexed into the town. And so what that means is that house in perpetuity is never going to pay any city taxes. So if you could zoom out on this, BJ, a little bit. I want to show you an example of this. Right here on Braden, Homes by Dickerson built about 9 houses. And those houses are never going to pay city taxes. Right here, 6 houses Colin Webster built. Those houses are never going to pay any city taxes. Now, they installed their own water lines, right? But in my opinion, if the town spends $100,000, $150,000 to do this water line, you're going to pay that off in 6 years with city taxes. If I do it at my expense, you're never going to see city taxes there. So it's just something I'd like to consider, and I think that the town would have a lot easier time of getting the water line done. You guys are going to have everything at your disposal to get this guy's stuff cleared off of this paper street. Your town engineer is going to be able to figure out the best way to do it for the least amount of money. Whereas if it's for me, maybe nobody's looking out for the bottom line. So I'm asking you to try to solicit some help for me from the paper street. Consider the expense, or I should say the investment of the water line. And that's mainly what I wanted to talk about. The very last thing about the same area is the speed limit on May Street there is 55 miles an hour. And that is way too fast. I think it would make a lot of sense. BJ, if you could zoom out for me. Yadkin right here, Yadkin and May, that would be a great place for a 4-way stop. Traffic is coming off all the way off of US 1, flying down here at 60 miles an hour. And I've spoken to DOT about it, and my neighbors have too, because like I said, I live just off of this area. And DOT blows off individuals. But if you guys, as the town council said, let's look at this, let's consider bringing the speed limit down, I think that you would have more success than somebody like me. Definitely doesn't need to be 55 right there.
Right. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak on a general issue that may not be on our agenda tonight, but anything else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Okay, moving on to our organizational matters. First, we are recognizing outgoing Councilmember Brandon Goodman. I see you folding up your stuff already, ready to leave. You're packing up. I will say, I've said it to a few people, but I mean, it's probably not as well known as it should be, that I would not have ever run for town council had you not told me to. Conversations with you about what's happening in our town and what could be done better, and how we function within the greater state of North Carolina has always been a topic of conversation between the two of us. And I appreciate my ability to serve and having the last 4 years on council because you told me it was a good idea. I think it is a loss to the town that you will not be on our council. We are losing in some ways a voice of reason that maybe was not always easy to hear, but it was making sure that we understood our role and how everything works together in the town. You've had a very impactful 2 years, and I think we've accomplished a lot that wouldn't have happened otherwise. But you've also left your fingerprints on the town plans through your participation in the council and your participation in the community advisory committee. And moving to more of a form-based code, I mean, I feel like I've heard the word so many times that it's like hurting my ears to even say it. But I think it's something that preserves and protects the town's character more than anything any individual up here has done. So I appreciate your help and guidance in getting that into our town documents. I do have a plaque for you. Look at there. We'll miss you. If anyone else would like to say something, you're welcome to.
Yeah, Brandon, I'll use this chance to thank you for your 2 years of service to our council. I've enjoyed getting to know you, consider you a friend now, and I most appreciated, it's great when the five of us have unique experiences and knowledge, and you, with your background and profession, had just understandings of how things worked on the building end that I'll never begin to know, and I appreciated your bringing that to light when it was pertinent. And so just appreciate your unique perspective and contributions to us. We'll miss you and wish you well. Thank you. Yeah.
I kind of second everything that the mayor has said and our mayor pro tem has said. Brendan, you have been an example, I think, for the rest of us on the council in terms of your initiative and your quickness to really address every matter that was of concern. I admired you for that. I was like, wow, Brendan is quick on it. I was looking forward to some things that we had talked about for West Southern Pines and just all of Southern Pines. And like our mayor said, you will be missed. And bronchitis couldn't keep me from being here tonight to just say that we love you. We respect you. I hope that you will not disappear. Your knowledge base to give guidance and information is definitely appreciated.
Well, I'm still around. You have my phone number.
I got your number. Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Is there a note on it? All right. That moves us on to swearing in our newest council member, Bob Curtin. And if you and Kate will come up, our town clerk will do the honors of swearing you in.
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States,
and the laws of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
and I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
which
are or may be established
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend the Constitution
maintain, and defend the Constitution
and laws of North Carolina,
and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent,
with the Constitution of the United States,
say that again,
with the Constitution
with the Constitution of the United States,
and observe the provisions of the Charter
and observe the provisions of the Charter
and ordinances of the Town of Southern Pines,
and ordinances of the Town of Southern Pines,
to the best of my knowledge
to the best of my knowledge
and ability,
and ability,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as council member, so help me God.
as council member, so help me God.
Congratulations.
And now we will have the swearing in of returning council member Ann Peterson.
I have invited my surrogate daughter and my faux grandchildren to hold the Bible for me tonight, and I'm very excited about it. All right, got it? On this side, there you go, good. Oh, good job, excellent.
I state your name.
I, Ann Peterson, I, Ann Peterson,
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States,
and the laws of the United States,
that I will be faithful,
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are or may be
established for the government thereof,
established for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United States,
with the Constitution of the United States,
and observe the provisions
of
of the Charter and ordinances
of the Town of Southern Pines,
of the Town of Southern Pines
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as council member, so help me God.
as council member, so help me God. Thank you.
Congratulations to our two council members, Ann returning and Bob joining our council. I think we look forward to 4 years of getting a lot of work accomplished for the town, and it has been an honor to serve on the council for 2 years as mayor and the 2 before that as council member, to work with people who care so much about this community, and I'm looking forward to the next 4 years with you all. We now have our council meeting scheduled for next year. We briefly discussed it at the work session a couple weeks ago. Make sure I have it up in front of me. I think that there was some concern that maybe the 2nd was too close to spring break, and Bill and I both checked on our schedules with travel. Neither one of us is out of town. And as long as, Deborah, you said you have an event that evening, but hopefully we'll all be out by 5 p.m. Are there any other issues with the budget retreat being on April 2nd? Okay, hearing none. Do you all have other conflicts?
So early is fine. Well, for me, but.
Yeah, early.
Yeah, I think, Ann, are you okay
Early
with
was
8?
good.
I'll make it happen, that's fine.
It's okay. All right.
Bob,
Thank you.
are you okay with 8? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did it start at 8 last time?
I think it was breakfast at 8 and then meeting, but we're all there anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Let's just go ahead and put 8 on the schedule. We'll get it started and get out as soon as possible because that can be a long day. But I appreciate having that early in the month because then if there's anything that needs reworking or revisiting, it gives Reagan time to do that without any pressure on us. Do you all need a minute to look at your schedules? Are there any other potential conflicts?
The other reminder just is that we did move that January work session to the
Thank you.
20th instead of the 27th so that we could report out the fiscal year audit, which again is late because of the federal shutdown and the need for a published report from them. So that will be on the 3rd Tuesday as opposed to the 4th in January.
Okay, and I think you heard from most people on that it was okay?
Most, yes, but that's why I wanted to point it out this evening, just in case somebody missed it.
Bill, I have a potential conflict on June 9th. Would you be able to run that meeting if I'm out of town?
Yes.
Okay. All right, does anyone else have conflicts? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the calendar as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Bob, is your first vote. You feeling good about it? All right. All right, moving on. We have appointing a delegate to the Sand Hills Metropolitan Planning Organization. Right now, my intention, Bob, was just to move you into Councilman Goodman's spot as alternate for the SMPO. The meetings are on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. I'm the chair for the MPO, and so I am almost always there. But if you're able to be the alternate, that would be the easiest swap out. Yes, sir.
3rd Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
It's not every Wednesday. I just wanted, yeah.
It's the 3rd Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. And actually, we've gotten to where we only have them maybe once a quarter lately. Does that work for you, Bob?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if there are other changes that you guys would like to discuss, we can just push those. We'll put it on the agenda for work session in January. Just let me know if anybody wants to make any moves. Does that work? Okay. Can I get a motion appointing Councilman Curtin to alternate for the SMPO?
I'll move to appoint Councilman Curtin as alternate to the SMPO.
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to our action items. We have a budget amendment for Urban SDK software purchase. Reagan, you had told me a little bit about this. Do you have more information?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think Engineer Mickle's going to make just a brief presentation on it, and you have a packet in your, I'm sorry, you have a memo in your packet about it also. The reason for the budget amendment is this qualifies because it's a 3-year contract over $50,000. It qualifies as one of those wonderful SBITA items. And in addition, so the impact on this year's budget is $7,000, and I think James will speak to that. We are also running that through, if you look very closely at the amendment, the line item that you all authorized in the budget for the Sustainavate initiative, and James is going to talk a little bit about the software and what we believe will be extremely useful and time-saving and have a pretty quick ROI.
Town
Thank you.
Engineer
So,
Mickle. Thank you.
James Mickle, Town Engineer. I'm here tonight kind of on behalf of the Public Works Department and the Police Department. This was a combined effort. We kind of came across this software independently, started reviewing it independently, and I had mentioned to the Police Department in passing something that I thought they would like, and they were like, oh, we're already looking at it. So it kind of snowballed from there. But what Urban SDK is, it's a software company that aggregates telematics data from vehicles. So every vehicle that has a GPS, your Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, your OnStars, all of those things, it sends data. The federal government, the Highway Safety Administration, they collect that data, and then Urban SDK takes it, processes it, and puts it in a format where we can basically see what the average speed of any road in town is. And it's something that is constantly updated. The day we actually sign up for it, we can't see individual vehicles. I see where you're going with that, Bill. Yeah, so, but I will say, you can see the maximum speed but you can't tell who it was. Don't worry. But what that does is, as I'm sure some of y'all are aware, we get very regular, and we just heard one this evening, questions and inquiries about speeding on town roads. And the typical process is the police department would take the lead on that. They go, they put the speed signs out. You've probably seen them around. That takes weeks of data collection, officer time to go out, check them, download the data, run the reports. So there's a cost associated with that. This software right here can basically recreate that. And it's not just a 4-week data set. It's from 12 months prior, and as long as we continue to sign up, it just continues to grow over time. And we've actually sat down with the vendor, took some of our older manual speed studies, compared the two, and they're plus or minus 1 to 2 miles an hour different. So, we're very, very confident in the data and what the system provides. So we saw, pretty quickly, this is a very, very good opportunity to kind of reduce what the police have to do to answer some of these, issues that come up, and allows them to refocus not only their time onto other things, but also the equipment. Because now the equipment doesn't have to be used capturing data. It can be put out as more of a speed deterrent. You can place the sign, it'll flash at you when you're going faster than you should be. And that was kind of the original intent when those were purchased years ago, but they've been kind of waylaid into always capturing speed data. So we saw a lot of benefit going through that, and we said, okay, we're getting offered kind of a little bit of a deal right now, otherwise we might have waited until the end of the budget. But we see a lot of benefit to it, so we thought we'd go ahead and bring it to council and get your thoughts and feelings on it.
Thank you.
I would add one additional benefit to that to keep in mind is, as James said, generally those speed trailers go out and it might be for a 2-week period. And oftentimes there's debate about, well, you picked 2 weeks that school was in or school was out, or depending on where the road is located and what might be along the road or what people might be using it to cut through for. This kind of takes that out of the equation because you can look at any period of time over the past 12 months. So it is a very powerful tool and very nice from that perspective.
And something you and I spoke about was speed enforcement, and this would give us a chance to see where issues are happening and place our enforcement.
Yeah, with the police CompStat model, this would now be data that they can actually look at for the last week or 2 weeks or 30 days and actually then kind of move speed enforcement around based upon where they see significantly high speeds or during particular hours where they might see high speeds. So it allows you to further target those resources rather than just randomly choosing spots and maybe being in the right place or not.
Okay. Do other council have questions?
Yes, so you mentioned, as you were saying, it was kind of a deal, quote unquote. And can you tell me the 7,000 is the initial prorated period from July 1, 26 until the end of the year?
Yes.
And that's the deal? And then,
So the typical average cost for an annual subscription is a little over $16,000.
right,
So if we were to sign up a true prorated, it would have been around $8,600, I believe.
Well, it's half of 16,042, right? So it's $8,021, okay? Okay.
It's not, it's a little bit more than 6 months. That's why there's a few extra hundred in there. But they basically said, if you will sign up now, we'll cut that even further down to the 7,000.
I'm confused about you saying it's more than 6 months. July, August, September, October, November, December. That's
Yeah,
6
well,
months, right?
the initial start date would be, I think it was set for December 13th of next, hang on. So I think it was December 16th. So you're basically getting it for 6 months and 2 weeks.
So this says, your note says here, a one-time bridge price of 7,000 for the initial prorated period. I see ending June 30th.
Yeah, oh, sorry,
So,
yes.
okay, so this would be December 15th, or almost immediately after this meeting, if we approved it, right?
Yes,
Until June 30th of 2026.
correct.
At which point it would run from July 1 to July 1 each year at a cost of currently $16,042.50. Is that correct?
Yeah, plus every year after that is a 3.5%.
3.5 annual increase.
Yep.
Okay.
Total budget amount, when you look at your budget amendment, includes all years and the prorated
Right.
6 months and 2 weeks.
Understood. And just a question that may be better tossed your way, Mr. Parsons, is I understand the problem, and I understand even the historical complaints about Massachusetts, and that speed was so high, and then you guys set up the speed indicators for a while. Is there a jurisdictional problem with us being able to have this information from, say, Indiana and Connecticut, and roads that are DOT roads?
I don't believe there's a jurisdictional issue with us having the data. Now, if the data is demonstrating something and we wish to then solicit DOT to consider speed limit changes, the data is only going to be beneficial to have as part of that request. But it doesn't provide us the opportunity to still go out there and change it on our own, for instance.
Right.
But again, and James, correct me if I'm wrong, but another piece of this that I didn't hear James mention is you can also get some traffic counts off of this.
Correct, yeah.
So that's another piece that oftentimes we get into conversations about, or you're looking at TIAs or different things.
Right.
And this actually allows you some traffic counts along roadways, which not a police matter, but certainly a planning and engineering matter as they're looking at that type of stuff.
So this isn't a step in the direction that I've been advocating for a long time, that it would make sense to have an independent TIA in the instance of development where we're taking the position, I mean, we're only hearing from traffic engineers who are hired by the developers. So this would give us,
I don't know that I would go so far as to say this.
I
You would
know,
not equate this to an independent TIA. It would provide you an additional data set in verifying if something in a TIA came in and you thought it just looked off.
Right.
But again, recognize those TIAs generally involve a traffic count over a period of time. And I think there's even been debate around certain applications of when those counts took place.
Right, I agree with
Much along
that.
the lines of what I was talking about. So it's another way to just kind of verify and validate data, yes.
so how easy would it be for the council members to have access to the data, and how difficult would that be? Do you have any idea, Mr. Nickel?
The data would have to be provided to you only from the standpoint of, I believe there's only so many licenses that come with this. Remind me
Yeah,
of
so
the
there's
number.
2 what I'll call admin licenses
Power
that come
user
with it.
license,
Power,
yeah.
That gives you the ability to tweak certain things and like produce reports. There is basically an unlimited number of view-only licenses that comes with it. So how that's distributed, I'll kind of leave that up to a decision up there, but I wouldn't say, not something I would recommend every employee in town get access to, but we are not limited by a number there.
It probably makes more sense for you all to generate a report based on our specific request as opposed to give us access to a full data of all the streets. I mean, it's probably
that-
outside the scope of our job.
I would caution, there's always a certain amount of interpretation that goes into looking at it. The viewer licenses will only give you a limited, I think it's a 30-day window snapshot.
Okay.
Whereas, whoever the two power users are, they can scan back in time and isolate, hey, I want to look at this 6-month period versus just the 30-day period.
And do we have a theory as to who would have the two license abilities? The two, would that be Polidori, Chief Polidori, and who would that be?
I won't say it's going to be Chief Polidori, but whomever is designated as kind of the traffic lead in the police department by Chief Polidori, and then our engineering department.
So one would be with traffic, I mean, one would be with the police, and one would be with engineering? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I had one quick question. Over the course of the 2.5, 3 years, is there a maintenance program that comes with this? I.e., something breaks, is there a mechanic that's on call? Is there a computer programmer guy that's going to come and help us
Yeah, so support is included in the,
for that as well?
yeah, so there's training included up front when we first go online, and then there is ongoing support that's part of the annual fee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? I think this is a step in a good direction for all of us. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 3153?
I'll move to approve the ordinance for the budget amendment for the SDK software purchase.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Mickle. Okay, now we have Resolution 1139, setting a public hearing date for annexation petition AX-03-25 for the Humane Society on Highway 22. So we are looking to set the public hearing date on January 26th. Is there anything else that we need to hear?
No, we didn't have the calendar adopted.
Oh, okay,
So it'll be for your business meeting.
Okay.
In January of 2026.
okay.
Since we hadn't adopted it, I couldn't put the date specifically.
So that's now the
13th.
20th, is that right?
Work session 20th.
13th.
So 13th
The
on
regular business meeting.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve Resolution 1139, setting January 13th as the public hearing date.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, our first legislative public hearing, we have a zoning text amendment for the missing middle housing. This is something that staff has been working on for quite some time based on the updates to our comprehensive long-range plan and the identification of sort of a missing middle in our housing options. James, it looks like, are you going to give us some?
Bring my whole laptop up this evening for this.
That is perfect. Thank you for being here.
Good. Give me one moment. All right, well, good evening, everyone. My name is James Broadwell from the Planning Department, and I'm glad to present to you all. First thing from us tonight, the housing reform text amendments. And before I say anything else, I have to say thank you to our focus group that's worked with us from the onset of the project. Without their expertise, without their diverse inputs they put into this, what I'm about to go through with you just wouldn't have been possible. So a real sincere thank you to them. And it really is a balance, because folks that wouldn't necessarily want another house built in our community aren't going to like parts of this. And conversely, folks that would want to maximize housing everywhere possible also aren't going to like parts of this. And moreover, it's not going to fix the housing problem. But it is going to help the problem by bringing the supply closer to the demand in a way that doesn't erode our community character, community assets, and it's only allowed in our 5 highest density zones. It's by no means is this an anything goes kind of housing reform. In order for one to qualify for this to be possible on a parcel, you have to demonstrate consistency with a lot of standards on top of the UDO, which I'm about to get into. So with that, if you'll afford me the next about 15 minutes, I'm going to just get back into the origins of the project, some of the real meat of it, and then some examples. Something I heard in between the housing talk we did back in October and Planning Board were concerns about the community character, and also how this might play out. So that's where I'll get with those examples. Feel free to stop me at any point along the way as well. So this time last year, the December town council meeting, the council at that time selected attainable housing as a comprehensive plan implementation project to work on. And then this past March, staff brought the council that time 5 options, 5 pathways we called them, as far as ways to get at the housing issue. Those pathways were zoning reform, expanding accessory dwelling units, administrative approval options, preserve the stock of housing, and the 5th one, an intergovernmental government subsidized housing policy. And the council at that time selected 1, 2, and 3. And this package represents 1 and 3 were zoning reform and administrative approvals. But to zoom back a little bit further at the comprehensive plan itself, when it was adopted in 2023, a lot of community input went into this. And the general consensus on the housing topic was, we're not going to be just a super exclusive community, throw up the gates, housing prices go through the roof, and sprawl pressure keeps pushing out into our natural and rural areas. But we're also not going to mow over all of our community assets in the name of affordable housing either. We've got to have a balance, something in the middle there. So what really is the problem? Well, on the supply side, you all may have read in the staff report about the Bowen National Research project that came out, the housing needs assessment in 2024. And their assessment was that for-buy housing at the workforce area median income rate is by far the largest gap. I believe it was around like 7,000 units for Moore County. And on the demand side, we've got a few unique factions of demand in our community. One, folks that are renting, that want to move up, buy a property, and start building equity. You've also got folks that are downsizing. They want to live in their core areas of town, and that's why they're looking for single-family attached housing, like you see there, townhouses, duplex, and so forth. The presence of the military also has its own nuance, and the reality is that someone who possesses a VA loan can more or less outbuy someone of a commensurate profession in the workforce. And that has an inflationary effect on housing in our community. So there's a lot of demand for single-family attached housing and not a lot of supply for it. So what if we do nothing? Prices keep going up, and that sprawl pressure keeps going out. What the comprehensive plan said that we want to take steps to address. So this past March, the council at that time said, okay, do something about it, but do it in the right places, do it with character, and control for other key aspects of the comprehensive plan, and target that workforce area median income, which is about 80 to 120%. So we put together that focus group I mentioned, which consisted of Habitat for Humanity, builders, developers, bankers, a couple of land trust representatives, as well as legal reviews and outside agency inputs as well, to come up with 2 new types of subdivision processes that would apply only to single-family attached. I'm going to take a brief aside and mention again, single-family attached housing is only allowed in 5 zones. It's allowed in your residential mixed housing 1 and 2, central business, neighborhood business, and office services. You'll see that's mainly your core downtown area, a few areas up north right there, and then other pockets kind of scattered throughout off of Murray Hill Road and so forth. So of our entire jurisdiction, it's a relatively smaller area. So 2 new types of minor subdivisions. Real quick, I'll just differentiate minor versus major. The minor subdivision as it is currently written in the UDO is up to 5 lots, doesn't necessarily matter what the underlying zoning is, as long as it meets a long list of criteria, it can be approved administratively. The major subdivision is what you all see. Anything 6 lots or above doesn't meet the criteria because it requires a lot more robust review. And what we've created and proposing tonight is the minor 2 and the minor 3 subdivisions. If one has enough available land, and that's a big if, and they meet all the standards I'm about to get into, with the minor 2, you could build up to 9 lots. And that 9 comes from the almost every time 8 units plus your common area. Because with townhomes, you almost always have access, parking, open space, and especially well with this. The minor 3 requires all those same standards, and then even more standards, which the developer can pick from a list of varying point values to reach 15 points to then build up to 21 lots, again, likely 20 units plus your additional common area lot. Any questions before I keep pushing there?
Yeah, what was the purpose behind adding the administrative review element to this? Like, I understand you're creating new standards, but then like, what's the good or bad of just having you guys review it versus still having them come before us?
That was kind of the starting premise of our third pathway, because administrative approvals are things that have standards baked into them that the town wants to see. And from the developer side, that reduces a lot of the inherent risk as far as committing money to a project. They kind of know what their operating left and right limit is, and they can more easily move a project forward that way.
Go ahead.
I would also add to that, that inherently, if this were to come before the council, this would be a quasi-judicial hearing, because you'd have the set of standards that are being baked into the system, and they would have to show how they have met those standards. So as Planner Broadwell stated, the purpose of this was to sort of try to streamline it and take some of the unknown out of it. But I think it is also worth noting that this would, to put it back into council's hands would also to be pushed back in the direction of a lot more quasi-judicial hearings, which was something that the council had previously said, let's try to get away from in the code.
May I pause there and ask Mac a question? Is quasi-judicial the only way that that would come before council? Or is there another avenue that one could travel?
To get before council, there are 2 choices, quasi-judicial or legislative. And the third option is to have it decided by the planning director.
Right.
I think taking it out of our hands and putting it into staff's hands is part of what we've talked about with, if we make it really clear what we're okay with, and they can meet all those guidelines, which hopefully the guidelines you all have set out is stuff that we agree to. But then it, make clear rules and let people follow them, as opposed to have wishy-washy rules that then come before us and it's, I don't know, it's a maybe. So, thank you.
Real quick, when you look at, let's say, minor 2 for an example, we're going to move from 8 to 9 lots, and that 9 lot is identified as green space. We also said potentially parking space or something. Is that something that you plan to dictate to, prospective person in the future? Says, hey, you can have 8 lots, that's 8 structures, or however you want to define that. But this other one is not a parking lot, it's some sort of green space, a park, a swing set, How do we define that 9th one? Because we are adding, significant piece of the pie. And then the same thing with, obviously, for minor 3. I'm just kind of curious, as we add to this, my interpretation, I just want to make sure I'm tracking, like a blue tick hound is the same as yours, and that's going to be some sort of kids park, swings, things like that. And then I assume my second part of this question, I'm sorry, sir, is you're going to kind of show us where these best fit the character of our town, right? In
Right,
your
and
presentation. So
I will.
you'll
I've
need to
got
jump
a few
ahead.
examples, but
Thank you.
to your question, the common area lot, it takes a lot of creative forms. Typically, it looks like one kind of crazy parcel that has maybe an access drive. It's got some parking. You've got your UDO calls for 2 spaces per unit. And then you've got your open space that's achieved, be it through a little community common area playground. Maybe it's a buffer that's 20 feet or wider can count for that. And these are the general categories of the standards, but 10% is one right off the bat that they have to make. And then they have to make all those underlying ones as well. I've got the standards written out verbatim at the end if you want to take a look at them, but these are the general categories. You'll notice these are a lot of the same things that we do with our conditional zoning district applications. A lot of things we talk about with building our articulation, certain dimensional standards, open space, tree preservation, a lot of things that you all are used to seeing. Next, I want to talk about the zoning reforms. And if one meets all those 17 standards, they unlock these items here. And The one I want to talk about first is the watershed protection permit. So part of what we have baked into this is an administrative approval of that as well. And the reason is, and when you go back to this map in the downtown area, the watershed overlay overlaps with almost all of that, and then in the shaded area. So if that was not an administrative approval in conjunction with this, it would still come back to you. Now, we had Amy Kirk in IT do an analysis for us of how much acreage is watershed overlapping with those zoning districts and is also non-built upon and may require a watershed protection permit. It came out to 133 acres in total, so that would probably mean well under 100 that could actually need a permit. So in reality, as far as what you all would be deferring administratively, it's likely less than 100 acres. And it's in the core areas of town, which the watershed regulation calls for trying to channel the development to go into. But I do want to bring that up because that is something that you all are used to seeing that would also be an administrative approval in conjunction with this. The other two most important ones here are the first two, the 50% of the underlying minimum lot size and the reduced setbacks. And this is really good for infill development because especially in our RM1 and 2 districts, the minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet for your first, and then in RM2 it's 6,000 per. And that pretty well eliminates the chance of there being single family attached on a lot of these smaller lots around town. That's why you see single lot, $600,000 houses going where you could otherwise fit multiple units. So by having that in there, that expands the options a lot. And I've got a couple examples I'll walk you through with that as well.
How did you reach the setback reduction of 40% on side and rear and 25% on front setbacks? Just out of curiosity.
Well, actually, in the aim of being simple, there's a section in the UDO for administrative relief, and those are the numbers that refers to. Administrative relief with certain criteria, the setbacks can be reduced by up to 75 or to 75% and to 60% on the front, side, and rear respectively. So the
current setback, according to the UDO on side and rear, is translated into feet for me. It's how many feet?
It would depend on the zoning district, so it just defers to whatever's in the underlying.
Okay, pick a zoning district and answer my question.
If the setback is 100 feet in the front, and now it's 75 feet.
Right. Which district would you be referring to in that case?
Oh, none.
There's not one with 100.
Right off the bat, RM1 is, I'm having a total
That's okay.
brain fart.
That was a nasty question, but answer it if you don't mind, even if it takes you a minute.
I
So
believe
RM1,
it's-
the setback right now for rear and side and for front would be what?
Should be 30, 10, 30 for the most part.
It looks like
So-
Director Grieve has got some numbers he's pulled up.
Hit
Yes,
me.
indeed. Thank you. So let's use, for example, the RM1. The front setback is 25 feet. The interior lot side setback is 10 feet. The rear setback is 30.
So now,
Those by those percentages.
you would reduce you did those a different way from where it's written. The rear one was 30, is that what you said?
Rear is 30.
So you would reduce the 30-foot by 40%, and you would reduce the front setback, which was 25, by 25%.
So you'd reduce the 25 by 7.5 feet.
Uh-huh.
You'd reduce the rear by 12 feet.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you're ready for this question or if we're there yet, but if you're also in your provision, it says, tree protection fences may serve a dual purpose with silt fences. Can you speak more to that, please?
Yes, that was feedback from the focus group. Right now, how the UDO reads is that silt fence and tree protection fence, you might have to have both, when in fact you could achieve the same purpose by just having tree protection fencing labeled on the silt fence so it serves both purposes. So it gives the option to basically just use less material to achieve both purposes.
So the silt fence is a necessity because of environmental mandate, is that correct?
Just erosion control, yes, ma'am.
Right. And the tree protection fence is something that we are requiring in our beloved town that is a tree city.
Yes.
Right, okay.
And a lot of the time, they don't always parallel each other, but
Right.
they often do. And so when they do, that just provides the option to have one fence serve both purposes.
That's to get rid of the redundancy, and the requirement would exist regardless because of the silt fence that is required environmentally.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll move on unless there are any more. The last table is referring only to minor 3 subdivisions. That's that incentivized standards I was telling you about. You have to pick, the developer has to pick whatever combination they want to reach 15 points, and then they can move up to that 21 lot maximum. And the items in here, they serve 2 purposes, either further retain character or offset some of the costs for that ultimate homeowner who's going to purchase that home. A lot of them are ones that you would expect, and I've got these all written out as well. The first 2 I do want to mention, the redevelopment site selection, because knocking down buildings is expensive, and we really want to efficiently use lots that we have in town. That is assigned the full 15-point value. The second one, built to system vision construction standards. So that came from Habitat for Humanity in the focus group, because those are the standards that they use. And they're intended to make the building much more durably built, energy efficient built, so that you don't have your HVAC breaking in the first couple of years, you don't have a high utility bill. The house is just built better, and they have a lot less costs for that homeowner. It may be a little bit more expensive in the build, but marginally so, to a much better benefit to that homeowner. Unless there are any questions on any of those, I'll keep moving as well.
Sorry. Help me understand. Redevelopment site. Your written statement here. No more than 30% of the site may be land that represents Southern Pines' natural character.
Right.
Can you restate that in another way that maybe would go into my brain?
Do you all recall
Ask.
Clark Street a couple months ago?
Yeah,
Had a ranch building on it, had some trees on the periphery. 70% of that building, more than 70% of that building had previously been cleared and built upon, not natural character Southern Pines. So therefore, that site would qualify for that.
so in other words, in order for minor 3 only incentivized standards to kick into place, there would have to be a site that had already,
There would not, because a developer could pick any combination of this that they want. If it was not a redevelopment site, they could choose installing sidewalks on adjacent streets,
right?
do an improved vehicle use area landscaping, and they could pick installing gutters and improved exterior lighting, and they've met their point value.
Right, it's still not working in my brain about what the redevelopment site, no more than 30% of this site may be land that represents Southern Pines' natural character. So in other words, I go to buy a piece of property, and if more than, I can't even explain it to you. I'm sorry. Help me.
I'll try one more.
Give it
So
one more
I'm
shot.
Developer Joe, and I'm going to go look at this property.
Okay.
It has 50% covered in natural trees.
Okay,
Joe could not pick that first item to meet his point value.
okay. But Joe needs to put together 15 points, and we don't know how many points each one of these are worth? It's on the screen, thank you.
Yeah.
It's not on my piece of paper, thank you. Okay. Hi, yeah.
Hey, can I ask a quick question while she's
Yes, sir.
adding numbers? So anyone can come in and select any, it's like a smorgasbord, they can select any number of those point values and come back to you and say, hey, I've met the point value. So I improved the landscape and I put in some gutters. There is not a formula by which we would, you, as in the planning guys, would say, hey, you need X amount from this group, X amount from this group, to to give us exactly, I'm going to use a term that I've heard a lot of, that Southern Pinesy feel, right? So if I came in and I just cleared away and I got 15 points for the redevelopment site, it's pretty clear sailing for me to take and do anything I want with that piece of property, because, so what I'm saying is rather than just have an open, have you guys thought about sort of packaging them in small different packages? So there's a big difference between clearing a site and then opening and having some clear space where kids can throw a football around. Do you know what I'm saying? Or is it intentionally left so that someone can come in and pick anything they want from that list and add it up any way they want to provide them with the ability to be creative with the land, as long as they meet our...
That's exactly right, because every site is different, and we want the sites to use what their assets are available. Maybe a site is near enough to one of our greenways, they can take advantage of a pedestrian connection. Maybe a site was used and now is an old dilapidated shed, and that's going to be a little more expensive of a demo, but they're going to get their point value that way.
And that was my last question, because I know you guys put a ton of work into this, and I'm the new guy, so I apologize. So to me, if let's just use some property that I know of. I come over the bridge in Morganton, right on the right-hand side, there's this huge, orange, ugly monstrosity that I know the town's been working diligently to get rid of. That, to me, is worth 15 points. But if you try to tear down the tree fort that my son and I built, 18 years ago, that's also worth 15 points. So is there defining terms or definition of what you exactly expect someone to come in? And if you haven't gotten there yet, I understand. I know that this is, the first go, and I apologize. I'm just trying to, man, it's a lot of stuff running around up in that noggin of mine. I apologize.
I have the whole standard written out at the end.
Thank you,
I'm happy
sir.
to push to that.
No. I trust you a little bit.
Sorry.
But the standard is that 70%. So if we are looking at the property and clearly 40% of it has mature vegetation on it at the date of the application, you cannot use that first point value option.
So to be clear, did I have access to the point scale before right now on the slide?
It is in the attachments. It's in the UDO appendices portion of the packet.
Okay.
And that it's the first table is the standards, second table is the zoning reforms, third table is this stuff.
Yeah. This is a whole lot to digest really quickly. And let me ask one more thing, just a bigger view of the whole thing. The legislature has tied our hands as far as downzoning. If we vote to make these changes to the UDO, and then we say, oh, we blew it, we're stuck with the changes we've made. Is that true?
I'm actually glad you asked that question
Thank you.
because this is
I'm glad I
all-
made you happy.
Well, because this is all an incentive-based thing. Anyone is welcome to go the major subdivision route at any time. They don't have to do this. Because this is all totally an option, it is not an issue as far as Senate Bill 382 is concerned. And also because it functions inside the subdivision portion of our regulation and not the zoning portion, that further keeps it safe. And that's actually a question that we asked at the planning conference back in October.
So if I can piggyback, because I had a question too, and I wasn't quite sure from what you just said if this is the case. I was like, how flexible is it? Because seriously, if we pass this and it doesn't have the intended effect at all, and it's compromising our characterization of neighborhoods, and it's not working. Can we meet next meeting and be like, abandoned, delete it? Or as per Councilman Peters' question, is that more difficult than it sounds like it would be to undo it?
We had David Owens, one of the most knowledgeable land use lawyers in North Carolina, take a hard look at this multiple times back and forth. I've asked that question to him, and he is not concerned because installing this and then removing it would not create nonconformities in how that bill reads.
So along that same line, if it all passed, whether it's tonight or next month, if it passes and projects start to go through, it will be all under administrative approval. Can you guys at work sessions kind of bring those to our attention so that we know what's happening and we're aware of which things fall under this, process so that we can determine if it's working or not?
Absolutely.
Okay.
One last question, I'm sorry, sir. So is it your intent with such a heavy number associated with the redevelopment site selection, is it the intent of the planners to motivate people to go in and get rid of our dilapidated, we have a few dilapidated sites around town. Is that one of its primary intents? Is that the intent of this? Or is it, and I'm asking, is it the intent to, use this with sort of virgin terrain? Going in and where it's all woods, and then we get to clear out 70%, so we have just the 30? Or is it somewhere in the middle? And that's a fair answer, I would imagine, but I'm just kind of, because I am kind of nervous if we pass this and, day one guy, man, can you imagine? We pass this and it sucks. What have you done? Yeah, so.
Infill development is another key priority of the comprehensive plan.
I'm sorry, say it again?
Infill development is a key aspect of the comprehensive plan because density that's near the utility infrastructure, it's in the fire districts, it's near the police department, and we're reusing space efficiently is important. And the zoning districts that this would be allowed in is all right near that. It helps keep new development in where the stuff is already present and keeps the sprawl pressure out and further protects our rural natural areas as well.
And if I may add, the dual advantage to that is not only the dilapidated properties you're thinking about, but because of the 70% that he talked about to even qualify for that automatic 15, you're redeveloping sites that already have their watershed credit. So you're also not utilizing those up or covering green space that happens to be within that core area.
I can move to some examples now, or I can go to all of this listed all the way out. I've got.
More question, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
If I am hired by the planning department, God forbid. If I'm hired by the planning department and this comes before me and a developer comes to me and wants a minor 3 only incentivized standard for building standards, and your verbiage here says, build to a set of building standards that are more durable and energy efficient for the homeowner, what bar does that developer have to clear for me to say, okay, 15 points, ding, ding, ding?
Well, if you go to the appendices packet, at the very end, there is a pretty thick section in Appendix B, and that is the System Vision Construction Standards.
Right.
It's got 9 different categories, and they all hit at air tightness, moisture management, indoor air quality, framing and insulation, HVAC, pressure balancing, plumbing, appliance and lighting, aging in place, and combustion safety, radon mitigation.
Okay, so now the developer says to me, I've done an air tightness. And I go, okay, 15 points.
How that goes is that is going to be written on the site plan application. It's going to be written on the final plat.
Do they have to do one of those things?
They have to do all those things.
They have to do all of those things?
They have to meet every single one of those standards.
Okay.
Get the
That
15
was
points.
really helpful. I'll tell you what's confusing is, and we've already done this where we've asked questions and it's in 3 different places. And I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but I am opposed to trying to make a decision about this tonight. And I appreciate you and I appreciated coming to your session in October. And I know how hard you've worked and I understand that and I want to be really empathetic, but I also want to tell you that my instinct is to just say, I'm going to need more time to wrap my head around this. And I don't know whether the rest of the council will be with me on that or not, but I think this is huge, and I think you're really trying to address an issue that we ask you to address, and I thank you for that. And I would put our planning department up against any planning department in the land. I think you're all amazing. Hear, hear. But this is a whole lot to throw at us. This is like drinking from a hydrant right now. So.
We've seen it, though, and the planning board has seen it.
It's not.
Let's at least get through your presentation before we make a decision on what our action is or inaction is tonight.
Yes, ma'am. I think next I'm going to go through some examples. And so right here, we've got some data from the multiple listing service comparing detached versus attached housing. And in 2025, the average home price for a detached home was around $600,000. For an attached housing, it was $373,000. And I'm going to start with this example right here because new builds generally are a little bit more expensive than your existing stock. And by having more new builds, having more into the supply, someone who, say, is downsizing, someone who, say, possesses a VA loan, if they have the buying power, they may pick the slightly more expensive version, but that frees up things like this unit I was just looking around the other day, 310 here off of East Delaware. There's also a bunch of units I noticed off of the Bradford Village townhomes, right there across from the rec room, 335. Again, at the upper end of the workforce range that we're targeting, but it's still there. And so next, this East Delaware Street is very interesting because, and I'm going to walk down on Google Street View for a second. Because a lot of the standards that keep and protect the character that are baked into this, we can see on East Delaware. So I'm right here at the corner of May. Thank you. And I'm walking down, and I see these townhomes over here, and they blend in pretty well. You don't hardly notice them. They've got a few elements that are written into this thing. I'll notice there's some projections, some variations in the roof height. That's in there. They've got pretty good tree protection. They've got vehicle use area landscaping. But they don't have any brick. And 20% brick is a standard. So that's something that we would get that's not there. There's also no 10-foot buffer that I noticed, which would be a requirement. There's also out front parking, which is not great. And more creative parking is one of those incentivized standards that I talked about. Now I turn around, and there's 10 more townhomes that are even further conforming to our character. And I'll point out a few things with those. You see a lot more robust use of brick. Let me try and get a better angle. A lot more brick. They've got porches. They've got building articulation. I've got a sidewalk. They've got good tree preservation and landscaping. And then another one of those incentivized standards is the use of side and rear loaded parking. And when I go around back, there's a little bit of front parking. Rear loaded garages. That's one of the things. This is 10 units, so they would have to do a minor 3. They'd have to pick a combination. That's one of those things. It blends in pretty well, and that's what those standards do. So next I want to, a little bit of some math examples here, and how we calculate how many units can go on a parcel with its given acreage. This is on the corner of Page and West Main Street, about a quarter of an acre. And today it's zoned RM2, which calls for 10,000 square feet for your first lot, 6,000 for your subsequent lots, which means I would need 16,000 square feet to put 2 units. Can't do it, 1 unit max. With those zoning reforms, it's now 5,000 plus 3,000, I can get 2. Which means, and there's a street view shot, it's another good example of infill. Just kind of a vacant lot sitting there right in the core area of downtown. Instead of getting more of these, like we're seeing down in South Page Street for probably around that average $600,000, more on North Page Street. On there, you might get a duplex, 2 units at more like that 330 or 373 average for an attached housing that we're seeing. I imagine the duplex rate is probably a little nuanced difference there. So here's another example. We're over here on the corner of May and Manley. And these are 2 contiguous parcels that together are 0.64 acres or 27,000 square feet. And RM1's a little different, 10,000 for your first unit still, but then 3,600 for your subsequent units. And when you do the math, you come out to only being able to do 5 units on 0.64 acres. And if this were to pass, 13 units is the number, but with the big caveat of they still have to meet all those standards. There still have to be a 10% open space, your parking, any buffers that apply, et cetera. So that's probably more like 9 or 10 units, depending on how creative the developer is. But that just shows how much more capacity for infill that there actually is. There's a street view right there. So instead of, and it actually is, again, relatively clear in the middle. There's a lot of good trees along the roads that would be great for preserving. And we get more townhomes that look like this. Just one more for you. This is up on NC 22 Central Drive, just a little bit south of Reservoir Park. And this actually already has an approved, I believe it's about 10 apartment units, which again is that for rent, not for buy, which is the major gap we're looking at. This kind of shows a missed opportunity here, but it's about exactly an acre, zone neighborhood business. Today, that comes out to 10 lots, 10,000 plus 3,600. But then if this were to pass, that gets chopped in half, 21 lots, you can max it out, but probably not with how that thing's configured. You've got your buffers, your open space, and that access drive, it's actually probably more like 10, maybe 12 if they're really creative with that. But that's just some examples of how the underlying zoning is prohibiting a lot more of the attached units that could easily give us much better infill development around town. That's what I've got for you. And we recommend approval because it implements the comprehensive plan, the policies that we talked about earlier this year. It will aid the supply gap. Again, it's not going to fix the housing problem, but this is a mechanism through the market to catalyze more of that attached housing in infill areas of town. It fosters infill over sprawl into our outer areas of our community. It's quiet density with character.
Mr. Broadwell. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go with questions.
So you said this at the beginning. I guess my biggest point of this whole thing is that we can't compromise the character of any of our neighborhoods. I appreciate your identifying limited places where it could go. I guess just from that selection, the highlighted shaded things were just areas that already had or by current right were more dense. Is that sort of what determined? How did you pick these shaded areas?
As the UDO is already written today, single-family attached is a by right use in those 5 zones and not a by right use in any other zone. So
Thank you for clarifying that.
groundwork's already there.
Couple questions I had, and just trying to stay in keeping the character of those neighborhoods. I mean, a majority of those, some of these neighborhoods are single-family detached homes. So we're kind of talking about putting these in and around those. And your examples you showed us, while yes, they look great, they weren't right on top of or right next to a single-family detached home. And so when I'm thinking about, there's a vacant lot, and suddenly somebody that has a single-family home is going to have, a multitude of uses. To me, there's a big difference between the duplex that you show and like that thing where you showed 20 units on an acre. It's like, it sounds alarming. But I guess one thing that stood out to me is in here, it said 45 feet. Because that's one thing that's going to not be conducive at all if I have a low-lying single-family home and then 45 feet. Is that already the standard, though? Because I know a lot of houses aren't built to current allowance anyway. Mm-hmm. So is that 45 feet consistent with current
It's
or not?
It is for a couple of zoning districts, and that actually came from the planning board. They recommended, a couple members, that because that may limit the ability to go 3 stories, and having that be consistent across all the zoning districts that would allow single-family attached, they recommended including that as one of those zoning reform items.
Okay. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there other questions?
I had a couple for you. And obviously, it's because I'm the new guy and I'm a bit naive. So my question is, before approving amendments to UDOs and things like this, and adding and subtracting, I just real quickly, up front, you gave a great analysis of all the agencies that were a part of the analysis. And one of the couple things that I noticed that were missing from the analysis was, obviously, we didn't reach out to Fort Bragg. And if we did, we just didn't put that on there. And I bring it up as cause for concern because if we continue to build and develop and you brought up the military several times. Since 2022, they had a population of active reserve civilian employees, family members of 270,000. As of right now, it's 242,000, and there's no look to increase the military population. We're going to get a Western Hemisphere that is 3 organizations brought into one, and it's probably going to be less than 1,800 people coming in. And the reason I bring that up is because we're competing with our neighbors, and I think we need to probably reach out to Fort Bragg and say, where are the majority of the population now going? Is this still Moore County? Are they going to Hope County? Are they going somewhere else? Because that'll allow us the ability to really deeply analyze the types of homes that people are targeting, right? Since we can't target people, but they're going to target homes in neighborhoods. And I'm really worried. And the last thing I would ask is I just read, and I'm trying to find it for you, the North Carolina Office of State Budget has determined that population in Moore County, which was once targeted at 2.5, is now down to 1.48 in terms of growth between now and 2055. I'm going to go back and clean those numbers, but it was previously identified as 2.5%. It's now, the latest projections are 1.48. I do like the third scenario you presented because, those 21 apartment complexes, which that's a tall drink of water in this community to get that through. But even in scenarios 1 and 2, when we look at going from a single family, detached to a multifamily attached, I know we're calling them single family attached, but we're putting multiple families on top of each other. Have we gone and done some outside analysis? Do we take that into consideration? I'm really worried that are we at the point where we've met market saturation? Because right now, what I've read is that our market trend in Southern Pines is considered balanced. And a detailed home on the market right now, a detached home, I can't even read my own notes, is on the market for 49 to 66 days on average. And that is what most folks would consider you've met a balanced market. And I'm just worried because I'm the new guy, and so I'm trying to read into you a little bit. And if you could just kind of flush that out, I'll be honest with you, everything you presented, man, 3 bags and the chips, and we're in a party. But I just want to make sure that we're really carefully looking at this because is growth still there?
Well,
And
if I
from
could,
what I'm seeing, we might be at balance right now. And if that's the case, changing our UDO might be a little.
if I
don't
could
know.
speak to a couple of those.
Please, sir.
One, yes, absolutely. I think, speaking to them, again, we do meet quarterly with the Regional Land Use Advisory Commission. Last couple, we've talked about housing and kind of changes around Fort Bragg and the one you brought up as well. I didn't mean for what I said to imply that we're really expecting more growth from Fort Bragg. It's more just like the presence of those that have a VA loan, be it active duty or veterans. That presence alone, and I'm speaking mainly from our real estate professionals that were on the focus group, that does have an inflationary effect because that buying power does generally outbuy someone of commensurate professional standing elsewhere in the community. I have not, as far as is it continuing to grow from Fort Bragg, don't necessarily have that impression either. Where growth is coming from in the Bowen Research Housing Needs Assessment from 2024 is from a lot of different areas, and it's kind of all over the county. And their research really was the county in aggregate, and their housing numbers and the gap between now and 2029 was 7,000 for the county based on their growth projections. On the spot, I can't speak to exactly where they derived all of that data from, but that was the supply gap that we've operated on, and the entire real estate market. Those real estate professionals that operate here do as well.
Yeah, and James, man, I would juxtapose this against Fayetteville Metro right now is 208,000 people, and we're looking at 150,000. 155 if you read the 2024, but if you go back and look at the latest, we won't get to that number. And so that's what causes me concern, right? When you put so much product on the market and there's not a demand for it, and now we've got places going into disarray. And the last thing I would ask, I'm cautious about is our neighbors to the north and south are providing a different product right now. And from what I'm being led to believe, that's where a lot of people are going to. So you get 6/10 of an acre of land at 2,400 square feet. Now I get the whole, I met with, it's location, 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 and we have the location. And I'm just wanting to safeguard it with you. I'm not in opposition to anything you put out tonight. I just want to make sure that I understand, because if Fayetteville right now is currently at 208,000, Fort Bragg's only at 240 with everybody, lock, stock, and barrel. And we're saying we're gonna be, Moore County, and we're gonna reach 60,000 here in just Southern Pines. I'll give you the analysis. If I smack the mold here, where's it popping up? Over here or over here? And I just don't want it to pop up its ugly head, and we're not prepared for it. It's really concerning to me. I understand the need for and I hate this term, and everybody knows I hate this term, the missing middle, right? Because that talks to a style home, that doesn't talk to a lifestyle. But, and I don't want to be the guy that, the keeper of the tab, so to speak. I want to be a welcoming environment, a welcoming community. But when do we go back and use some of these outside influences to see if there's still a market demand here in Southern Pines?
I think
And what are they asking for? So no one comes to us and asks for a single detached home? I mean, if you look at, I'll get off my soapbox, but the average cost of a single-family attached home in Southern Pines is $460,000 to $535,000. And the single-family detached is from $500,000 to $580,000, and the mean is $535,000. That's not a huge difference between a single-family detached and a single-family attached, and that's coming from the latest realtors analysis. So I just want to be really careful before, there's over 100 red lines on here, and I just want to make sure I tread carefully before I give a thumbs up.
I understand, and, sorry. No, I understand. I think that one of the starting premises I'll go back to is that owning a home and being able to build equity is the gap that really came to the housing needs assessment. And for a workforce individual that, let's just say, is renting, ADU, whatever it is, they're looking to buy a home and they're looking to build equity in it. A single-family attached home is a much better avenue of doing that than a detached, certainly in our community right now, as the market's telling us. And that comes from both that needs assessment and the focus group as well.
If I could, if I may, just to hit a couple of comments. This proposal was sent to the Regional Land Use Advisory Commission, which reviews proposals on, it's actually state statute that adjacent municipalities have to send zoning amendments to the Regional Land Use Advisory Commission. They have a team of folks that review it. They get with so this proposal, as well as all the red line version, et cetera, was sent to them.
just to make sure that that's clear for everyone, that means it goes to Bragg. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, when you mentioned, talking to Fort Bragg, and James mentioned that we meet quarterly, yes, the Regional Land Use Advisory Committee is talking about around Fort Bragg.
Yeah, if we don't send zoning referrals to RLUAC, we're out of compliance with state statute on this issue, so we have a standard that we send them to. And they did provide comment back that they had no comments on the proposal. You mentioned stacking people on top of each other, and understand the concern very much. I just wanted to make sure. We do refer to this as single-family attached because multifamily is a completely different product, and actually, because single-family attached, you own the footprint. You cannot put another family on top or on top or on top. So if it's a 3-story single-family attached, if I'm on the 3rd floor, I still own the ground beneath me. So that multifamily arrangement where you have families living on top of each other is not possible with single-family attached. And so those were just a couple of little details that I think I wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Director Grave. I did want to just respond to one of the things that you'd mentioned about adding supply. I think what's important to know about this text amendment is we're not adding any supply. We're not building houses. We're not creating a product that's out there. Really, we're just opening up the opportunity so that if the market demand is there, it can be filled. And if it's not, if they don't want to jump through all of our hoops to look like it belongs in Southern Pines, then we won't see this get used. And I think that's part of the important balancing act for us, is to make sure that if we're trying to address housing reform, we're doing it in a way that has incentives. And if it's used and still fits in, that it makes sense. I will say, when I sat through the North Carolina mayor's meeting and economic development meetings that I go to, housing is an issue everywhere in North Carolina. And it's not an easy one. Attainable housing, especially that equity product that young families, really anyone, can invest and build wealth in their home, is an issue. And I think it's commendable that staff has gone through the effort of trying to find a solution. And whether it does or not is yet to find out. But I think it's important that we're trying, because that is more than most people have done. Does the council feel comfortable making a decision this evening?
I do.
I don't.
All right. Would you like to make a motion, Ms. Gray?
I'd like to make a motion to continue until the next session.
Is there a second?
Say,
Ready to make the motion to.
Oh, yeah.
approve it. Go ahead.
It is a public hearing before we have the motion. Thank you, Mr. Broadwell.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll provide opportunity for the public to speak. Thank you. Reagan. I was like, we're just going to slide on past that one. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak?
It's fully legislative. They don't-
Okay, seeing none. Okay.
You're going to want to hear additional comments. When you do take it back up, then you'll continue the public hearing. If you just plan for the council to have time to consider it and discuss at your next meeting, you can close the public hearing when you're
Okay.
finished.
Okay, thank you, Mac.
Good evening. John McInerney, 460 Crest Road. Couple of questions first, maybe. For the attorney, I think you said it could be like quasi-judicial or evidentiary or legislative or administrative in general. Yes. And I think Councilman Peterson's question was, I guess, if it were to go not the administrative route, but to the council, would it have to be quasi-judicial as opposed to it could be legislative before the council? And I wasn't clear, you gave those three, but I wasn't clear on, could it have been legislative if it comes to the council?
Unless Director Grieve corrects me, most of our major subdivisions come before council, is that correct?
As quasi-judicial decisions.
As QJ. Some of the minor ones go to staff, is that correct?
Yes, 5 lots or less, plus a bunch of other standards already. That's what this would be. What exists now would be the minor 1 under this new minor 2 and 3 thing. It would remain, yeah.
Yeah, in my statement that I believed it would be quasi-judicial was based upon setting in the code a set of standards that need to be met. And generally, if you're going to lay out the rules under which one is assumed to get approval, that becomes a quasi-judicial process as opposed to just legislative.
Either QJ or administrative.
Exactly.
Okay, but so it would not fall in the legislative bailiwick?
Not as drafted with standards that say if you meet these, then.
Okay, thank you. Just, I guess, a cautionary feeling about this, that this is fairly major. If it goes, I assume in some form it will go through. All right. Could be wrong, but I doubt it. But only time will tell the idea, I guess, is to lower the price. And is the intent that this is for people to buy as opposed to rent? And what keeps somebody from doing one of these? Somebody comes in, buys the whole thing, and turns it into rentals. I assume that's legit, right? And I'm asking because I don't know. I've got some ideas.
I think our attorney would like to weigh in on that real quick.
And the answer is that ownership or rental is not a land use issue. So the case you just asked about, the answer is yes, someone could buy it and turn it into rental property.
Okay.
Not a short-term rental, though.
Not a short-term.
No, we're not messing with the less than 30 days. I understand. You don't want to mess with that. I understand.
But I think that part of what our attorney is telling us is that ideally what we want is ownership opportunities, but we cannot make decisions based on.
No, I understand
Okay.
what you are hoping for, but I'm just, I guess, pointing out reality may not match what you're hoping for. And I'm not saying you have any control over that. I'm just some of the facts of life.
But someone could buy your home, right? Someone could buy your home and
Right.
rent it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, someone can buy any house and rent it. I mean, that is part of the world we live in. Okay.
Right. I guess I'm just worried about, like, for example, RM, I don't know whether it's 1 or 2, is a lot of the land, let's say, west of downtown. I'm thinking of West Main, all that area is all RM, but it's single-family houses now. And I can see this, people buying houses up, tearing them down and putting these up. And I'm just fearful of what that's going to make of the town. I used to live on West Main Avenue several years ago. And it's a nice neighborhood, small houses, individual detached. And I'd hate to see that just sort of get bulldozed over. Just be careful.
Thank you, Mr. McInerney. Are there other public comments? Okay, seeing none. To our planning department. My guess is that based on the constraints that we are setting out, buying a house and bulldozing it to put these in is probably not financially feasible, but is there anything that we can do to control that?
No, if a person buys a piece of property and wants to bulldoze the house and do something different, the redevelopment scenarios are mostly looking at dilapidated commercial structures, things like that. Whether or not someone buys a house and bulldozes an older home that's in disrepair and then uses that land to come in with this provision and do 2 or 3 units on that same land, that is a possibility. I can't say that wouldn't be because, again, it's going to come down to how much land does that old home sit on? If that old home, the price point of what that old home was purchased for, now to destroy it and bring in and do something different, such as we'll say 3 single-family attached, the market will decide whether or not that's worth it. If that home sits there as it presently is sitting, there are some policy choices here about whether or not how the community feels about that scenario. If I may, just a few closing comments or thoughts about, as I've been listening to this. In that scenario, where you have an existing home, whether or not something like this occurs, a major premise that went into the creation of this is protection of community character. And I do want to point, there was something that went by that I think maybe was lost. The list of points was only in addition to a robust list of requirements that both the minor 2 and minor 3 have to meet, period. Okay. It's to then qualify for the minor 3 and unlock up to 21 that you get into the points. And a scenario, whether you continue the discussion tonight or whether you continue it or whatever it goes, you can also tweak the points. So say, for example, you think more of those things on the list should be done. you could up it from, you have to get 15, you have to get 20. So now you have to get the 15 plus 2.5 plus 2.5. The point system and everything is interesting. This brings me to a second kind of wrap-up point I would like to make. We understand this is complex. We have to administer it. So we do all kinds of tabletop exercises where we say, to stress test these provisions, we sit down and we say, okay, somebody comes in with this much acreage, they've got this, go, how does this work? And we understand it's complex. I do want to share from my perspective in my years of doing this, people want the outcome of complexity, but they want the simplicity of simplicity. And the reason I say that is because people want to amend the zoning with a one-sentence amendment that's clear to understand, but when you do that, you get a line of people saying, but what about this situation, and what about this situation? What would happen if you had this? We need some common sense in here, and we need to this. So interestingly, what you're seeing in the complexity is a year's worth of work on the part of staff to run it by different entities and say, what do you think of this? And they say, well, I think this will work, but this wouldn't. What if you tweaked it like this? Back to the drawing board, work out a few things. So what you're seeing is some of the result of that, because sometimes if you come in with a really simple text amendment, it gets workshopped for 6 months, and what comes back is that additional complexity. So that's not necessarily saying that's good. It really isn't. It's just saying that's how that winds up happening when when you workshop this stuff with a lot of groups. I do want to add that, there's always this bigger picture, which is there is a national and state trend of concern about single-family only zoning in communities that don't accommodate single-family attached, don't accommodate duplexes, things like that. And so it started off as an attempt to get ahead of that a little bit. We would still have RS 1, 2, and 3, and these aren't in those zones, but accommodating, being the community that is working on accommodating single-family attached and duplexes and things like that is a goal of the comprehensive plan to be on the leading edge of that rather than following behind whatever the legislature makes us do later. And I did want to point out that you did receive an email at 5:37 from a member of the community who emailed, and it was forwarded to you. Obviously, if you continue it, if you take a break, whatever, I just wanted to point out there is a public comment out there that came in at after 5, but before the meeting. So it was emailed to you.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, BJ, just to return to the mayor's question, born of Mr. McInerney's legitimate concerns about some of those older homes and cottages, and I don't state this as a reality, it's more of a what am I missing? Relative to areas like he spoke of west of May Street, the ability to come in and purchase one of those older, smaller cottages, tear it down, and put up a duplex or townhome already exists, as I understand it. And even if it's maybe 2 or 3 of them, we're talking about the existing minor subdivision process may very well allow that. Recognizing that those lots, as we looked at them earlier with Mr. Pascal's comments, are extremely small. You would almost have to amass multiple lots because those are over 100-year ago platted areas of town. It's a legitimate concern, but I think it's one that already exists with or without this. This is really about maybe some larger redevelopment sites or things, because those opportunities to redevelop and tear down a single structure and maybe put up 2 and turn them into rentals actually already exist as the code is written. Am I missing something in that?
Not missing something. There's a slight nuance to that, which is that with this provision, there are some increased densities. So right now, for example, if you come in an RM2 zone and you have a single-family home there, in order to get 2 units on there, you would need to have 10,000 square feet for the first unit and 6,000 for the additional. That's 16,000 square feet. So you're pushing a half an acre just to get 2 units on there. If you under the new provision, if you came in with less land, you may be able to qualify for those 2 units because it does increase the densities because of this was part of the back and forth with the focus group is you're increasing those densities and they're saying, yeah, but you're making us do a lot of stuff to make sure that these townhomes look Southern Pinesy, and that stuff costs a fair bit of money. So to offset the cost of making them look and function better, we've got to get some densities, a few more units to pay for that.
Right.
So.
It's the thing I keep hanging up on, which gives me some unease. But again, I love our planning department and echo what's been said about you guys before. So thank you. So I appreciate that y'all said it's not gonna, your goal is not to, and you don't feel like it's gonna destroy or compromise characters. I think the thing I keep hanging up on is the number, and maybe it's just, I think the one lot he pulled it's on 22. It's not in a neighborhood. So I think if there's the potential for a 22 unit, even though single family attached, anywhere in some of these shadeds, it's not going to be conducive at all, and it is going to kind of compromise the area in and around where it is. Are those high numbers just really not feasible except for maybe some outlying properties? Because I struggle to think if we pass something and then by right, somebody's going to drop a 20 unit, a single family attached right next to a single family home.
Yeah, I really appreciate you raising that question, because that's something that, from a communication point of view, is one of the many things, like James kind of started at the beginning, he alluded to a couple times. Just because those numbers are 9 and 21 definitely does not mean that every property that bulldozes a single-family home can now drop 21 units, or if they do X, Y, and Z. Because remember, those numbers are maximums if you have the gross density requirements to start. So a small lot with 1 unit on it will never be able to get the 9 under minor 2. It could get maybe 2 or 3 or something like that. It is actually, we did an example where we looked at how many pieces of property are within these limited number of zones that could get to those upper units based on the density, and there weren't actually that many. So it's really just looking at them. The full number 9 and the full number 21 are actually going to be fairly rare. Yeah.
Or, yeah, I'm trusting your year-long analysis, because, just seeing those numbers, I'm like, oh my gosh, but I know y'all have looked and dug far, far deeper.
Yeah, it's a gross density calculation. So you start off with somebody comes in, they got 15,000 square feet. They wouldn't qualify for a duplex under the current thing. But if you look at a 15,000 square foot lot in these zones, these RM zones, it's a fairly big chunk of ground. And when you see a single family home, and then you see the design requirements of this in order to get to 2 or 3, either a duplex, triplex, single family attached, something like that, you see a scenario. And another important point, because this is voluntary, we are able to have architectural controls in there. You may have noticed under minor 2 even, there are architectural standards that we can't apply. So getting back to the example of somebody comes in and by right tears down a home, puts in a duplex, they can build it however they want, period. Under this, if they're using this bonus density, because it's an incentive, they're agreeing to this, therefore they're signing off saying, I voluntarily am taking this. I will now submit to the architectural standards that apply to both minor 2 and minor 3 that otherwise we wouldn't get. And so now you're getting single family attached with bump outs, you're getting a better guarantee of Southern Pinesy single family attached.
The only concern I have, well, one of the concerns, kind of a history nerd, and when I saw this come across my desk, I wanted to pick what I'm afraid of, what we eloquently term mission creep, where we continue to creep further and further and further. And what I'm concerned about is, and I looked at the scenario in Charlotte called Cherry District. It was a district that was created in somewhere around 1890 for a specific reason, and slowly but surely, through exactly what we're talking about, the missing middle and changing of ordinances to make sure that we have densities in the right area, the long and short of it is that population was almost forced out. And, for us, we have some populations here that are very, very near and dear to our heart that have been here since 1910, 1920. And while we're very specific now where we put these housing units, once we lose control, I don't want to use that term because it's a partnership, but once we lose that influence, do we run the risk of having a Cherry District here in Southern Pines where we've got an amazing population of people that adds incredible diversity to our community who can no longer afford to stay in their homes? Now, I know you put some very, very specific areas where this would take effect, and you've got some great detail on how this can happen. But I'm always leery about once you start adding, significant changes to the landscape, it's not just that one acreage that's affected, it's everybody to north and south. So I have no objection to the plan in and of itself and what we're trying to get, but what safeguards do we have to protect our current community and communities, and specifically since we're the big book that is sort of our playbook talks about character districts. And then this could, or something similar to this, may have the ability to change one of our character districts right before our eyes. Maybe not ours, because I know it will take some time. You know, it took Cherry District 30 years before they identified the fact that, man, we're getting sort of maneuvered on out of here. That's what I'm leery about. I just thought I wanted to share that with you guys, so, you know, you're just not looking at the new guys, the old curmudgeon. But I'm very concerned about how those folks are going to make it to the end of the week, so to speak. And that's really my hang-up. And the fact that there's, for me, a lot of red on this, and as a history teacher, a lot of red means I got a lot of homework to do. So I'm trying to catch up. I'm just being very cautious. And so, but I wanted you guys to know, Cherry District's sitting on the tip of my mind. And I know there's been a year of work, and I've been sitting in this seat for 58 minutes, and I'm not doing you guys justice and all the hard work. So that's where I'm sitting right now. That's my thought process. I don't want to push out a really important, you know, piece of our history and our lineage. And I just want us to be very careful about how we go about this. Thank you for your time, by the way.
There are zoning amendments. Thank you. I completely understood, and it provides an opportunity to have a comment, something we talk about a fair bit. There are zoning challenges that we address through very simple technical amendments, changing a number, tweaking a standard. Those are technical problems. This is really a package of zoning amendments that is getting at an adaptive challenge. This is far more centered around community values rather than just technical fixes of going from building height to 35 to 40 or 40 to 35. I stress that because we, staff, understand, we are not trying to sit here and say, this is the solution, we have all the answers to all your questions, come on, that's not our position at all. We're bringing this to you acknowledging, yep, it's pretty complex. It's complex because it took this, that, and the other thing. Yes, there are, we don't know exactly how this is gonna go, and I have to say that only because it's a big package of text amendments. We do know that usually when these, once they breathe for a little while, it's very normal, very routine. Every jurisdiction does it, that after 3 to 6 months, you get a few of these go through, and we're watching it very closely to see how it goes. And then we bring it back and we say, you've seen us, some of you have seen us come back and say, we have to tweak this one thing that wound up being a loophole that we didn't see, or we have to, very normal, and we'll continue to do that. We've talked to you about what projects have come through with the enhanced use of conditional zoning, and watched that very closely to see, are we getting success or are we getting loophole exploitation? So we would continue to do that with this and monitor it for the desired result. So.
Go ahead.
I was just going to two very quick observations based upon conversation earlier. One, you heard Planner Broadwell talk about and show the map where this would actually play out, and it was around the discussion, or it relates to the discussion of some of the legislative changes and the questions from that end. Because this is a use already allowed in those areas, we're good. If somebody thought this was a great idea and they'd like to expand it into other areas, that's where allowing it and then 6 months later deciding to pull it back could get you into some of those downzoning sorts of things. So I think staff's done a very good job of at least trying to initially move in the direction of giving this a shot in an area where we don't run into that problem. The second one I wanted to point out, and it's something that staff heard quite regularly through the meetings throughout this process, Councilman Curtin brought some excellent data relative to stuff on the market right now, and a seemingly relative small delta between attached single family and sort of detached single family. An interesting aspect of that is, I think if you envision the number of attached single family that are being built, they tend to be within the area that we're talking about. It's a lot of the downtown product. And part of the challenge in pricing those things that we heard a lot about were underlying, and I'll call them fixed costs, but underlying costs that really our zoning ordinance and our ability to directly impact is extremely limited or non-existent. And it's things like buying land, location. So a lot of that product that is on the market, I would say, is already, not artificially, but it is already influenced toward a higher price based upon its location alone. And it could be that comparing that to all single-family stock, much of which may be outside of that core area, you will see that delta between the two shrink pretty significantly. And those are the types of things that we really don't have a direct influence on. Obviously, through policy and over a long period of time, you can impact that. But that's just part of the challenges that I think the working group dealt with as they were trying to come up to this point of a draft. So just a couple of observations as you mull through a lot of this.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we continue this until the next full hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
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 All right, is there another hearing or another motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I move that after considering, oh, yes.
Yes, I did, nay.
Then I move that after considering the criteria for the text amendments found in UDO 2.17.10, that the town council finds that the proposed text amendments are consistent with the comprehensive plan and are a reasonable way to implement that plan for the reasons set forth in Planning Board's resolution that was included as an attachment to the staff report for OA-04-25. And shall I go on? Therefore move.
No, I'll need a second.
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
It's okay. And then you would do the second part.
And therefore, I move to approve the proposed amendments to the UDO as shown on the attachment to Staff Report 0A-04-25 in the December 9th, 2025 Town Council packet.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Councilman Curtin, you have a question on the second part of that motion? It's okay.
No, I'm good. I just needed to take a second to revisit. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm in.
Or is it an aye or a nay?
For the second one,
Yes.
where we're going to amend the attachment to. Sorry.
Yes.
Right here.
I read number one.
She read number one.
Okay, so
Yeah, hold on one second.
it's okay. We can have discussion between a second and voting, so that's fully allowed. What
Yeah, I want to
that's fine.
make sure I know what I'm.
While you're looking at it, I will make the statement that, we have talked about missing middle housing, and we've talked about protecting our town's character. We've talked about avoiding gentrification. And this is something that you all have worked really hard on a solution that we live in a world of, we all think it's a good idea, but nobody wants it done next to us. And it's one of the hard votes that we sit up here and we say, for the greater good, I think it's the right thing to do. And I appreciate that you guys are doing it, or have followed our direction on coming up with a solution that's workable.
And for me, I like hearing one, it's reversible, and two, it's going to be viewed with a short leash, even if it passes. So thank you for that.
All right, Mr. Burton.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a quick statement.
That's
So
fine.
just to clarify my position, ma'am. I am not opposed to the work that has been done. But for me, right at this time, as I try to, chunk this, I need more time to assess. And so I would like to, I'm going to go ahead and say nay when we come. But I just wanted you to know that I just need time. There's 100 lines.
Yeah.
And between Friday or Thursday, I tried to get ahead of this, and I just need some more time to digest this. But saying that, I know we're on the right path. I know you're on the right path. I just got to wrap my mind around it personally, ma'am.
Understandable.
I apologize for any
No, that's okay.
consternation on the board, but that's just how I feel right now.
I'll also say that, I appreciate that we don't have to be experts on this. because it is a very complex issue. And I look forward to seeing its implementation and if something happens because of it, and if infill development, if we can avoid apartments by creating little pockets of infill, I think that would be awesome. So thank you, guys. All right, motion carries. Let's go ahead and take a break because we have been in here for 2 hours. It is 8:07 according to my clock, so let's come back at 8:20.
Okay.
Just a heads up that we're going to try to return to council meeting. It's now 8:20, so I'm going to ask everyone to return to their seats so we can get back to our council meeting. All right, we're back to our council meeting. Our next item on the agenda is the Plan Development Rezoning, public hearing 8B for Trimble Plant Road. And we have Planner Maddox.
All right, Mason Maddox, Planner 2 with the town. I'll start by saying, if you were wondering why this is coming to you as a planned development and not a conditional zoning district, it is because this would entitle a list of land uses that are only permissible under a planned development, write your own zoning essentially. So that's why this is coming for you this way. All right, here we have a nice aerial of the, oh, PJ's the, oh, it's paired to mine. Hang on. Sorry, folks. For your orientation, the property is just north of Brad Hauling American Whiskey Co., BHawk. Current tenants of the building right here include NC Self Storage, Penske Truck Rental, and the More Free and Charitable Clinic, to name a few. The property, outlined in red, just under 22 acres, contains 2 industrial buildings totaling approximately 236,000 square feet, so just a little mom and pop shop, if you will. The predominant zoning surrounding are also PD or industrial, and so that's one of the reasons why planning finds this area of town to be very compatible and very consistent with our comprehensive plan. The western half of the property is in the highway corridor overlay, entire eastern half is in high quality water, no issues there, can discuss more as needed. This is the site as it exists today. I'll turn your attention to this area where the biggest change that would come from this is the construction of a 40,000 square foot flex industrial building. The mix of land uses with this would remain industrial in character, including, yes.
Can you help orient me? Where is the free clinic?
Yep, free clinic's right here in this
Right.
corner.
Okay, great.
All right,
And this property?
and so we'll remain right there.
Cool, thank you.
Of course. Speaking of the free clinic, we have limited commercial uses like manufacturing, warehouse, assembly, that sort of list. As a planned development entitles the zoning, now is the appropriate time to ask for any deviations from the UDO or anything that might be better suited to this site. I'm going to highlight the big 3 for you: height, usable open space, and architecture. The CDP requests that buildings could be up to 50 feet in height. The highway corridor usually limits this to 35, but that is within the highway corridor. I will note that the industrial zoning overlay limits height to 50 feet, so it's actually consistent with what it has been. And so that is why planning is inclined to support that request. Concerning open space, planned developments must have 20% open space, 10% of that must be usable, so that's half. The applicant requests a full deviation from that to not have to have any usable open space. Staff found this to be reasonable given that the site is existing and that it's not necessarily a pedestrian-friendly area, if you will. The third request is for architecture. The new building right here is industrial in use, therefore it is not subject to the town's architectural standards. And I'll let the applicant speak a little bit more, and I know there's some pretty pictures in the presentation, but the existing building would have a bit of a facelift that would not comply with the current standards of the UDO. However, staff find the request to deviate from the UDO standard to be reasonable, given that the building is existing, it's many decades old and would be an improvement for the area. I also want to point out that the UDO would require a minimum of 192 parking spaces. Again, minimum 192. The applicant has volunteered that this would actually, if approved in the CDP, be the new cap, so a maximum of 192, so they are volunteering that. And then also wanted to note that the traffic design analysis specifically stated that this project would actually improve circulation in this area. It's not every day that you see that a TDA is going to help a site. Is our town engineer still here? And no issues with the TDA, with our proof right there. All right, unlike one of your more recent rezoning applications to plan development, I'm referring to Punic Village. I'm not going to go through every criteria and address how they are consistent. That is in your staff report, but I'm happy to do so at your request. Otherwise, I will simply say that this fully aligns with the 2040 comprehensive plan, especially conservation and development map, which lists this as an employment center and always supports infill development. So we're not putting any industrial use somewhere that it's never been before. I will get to our last item on this. They're not necessarily a pending issue, just I would say one of the bigger issues to consider is the issue of the buffer. Came out of the planning board. Originally, this was a 50-foot buffer, not undisturbed. It was the planning board's recommendation that it would be left undisturbed, and the applicant did correct that after the planning board before you all tonight, and so that's why you see this nice word right there. It says undisturbed. The question before you all tonight is, are you satisfied with 50 feet, or do we need to up this to perhaps something more? Planning board was fine with 50. Planning staff usually prefers that more is better. This is it with 50. Sorry, 75 feet to here, 50 feet to there. I'll let the applicant speak a little bit more to that. But there's 1 and 2, kind of what that would look like.
We're looking at 50 versus 75.
75, forgive me, was to match the parking setback.
Okay.
So that was a number that I threw out. That was a placeholder number. You're looking at 50 or more.
And we'll talk to the applicant about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I will let the applicant speak unless there are questions for planning staff at this time.
Council, do you have questions for Mr. Maddox? Okay.
All right.
Seeing none, why don't we hear from the applicant? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the turning the fans off. Feels a lot better. I was freezing back there.
It's hard to
Yes.
gauge what the temperature is out there, and if I'm the only one who's cold, but Anna's got her gloves on, so I feel like at some point.
I was going to put my big puffy jacket on,
Yeah,
but
well, thank you for letting us know.
yeah. All right.
I think the buttons on the keyboard should advance the slides.
Okay, great.
See if they work, the right arrow down at the bottom.
Okay, perfect. Hi, I'm Paul Satoff with the Coons Jones Design Plus V3. I'm here to present the Trimble Plant Road Conceptual Development Plan and PD rezoning. Thanks to Mason for working with us on this and giving the presentation, and thank you for hearing us tonight. Oh, it's not working.
We just have to point to BJ for a minute. Oh, got it.
It's working? Okay, there we go. So why are we here and why are we going through the CDP and PD rezoning? It's basically to kind of modernize the existing property. The existing property was built in the late 50s or early 60s. And going through this process will allow us to introduce new commercial and office uses on the property, which will allow the property to provide for current and future needs in the community and market. With the current industrial zoning classification, many office and commercial uses are not currently permitted on the property. With the proposed additional 40,000 square foot flex space building, which dependent on use would be permitted with a site plan application and approval. A modern space would be added to the existing property to attract new businesses to the area. You might ask what is a flex building? I didn't really know what it was either, what the definition of that was. It's really kind of a versatile building that kind of blends office, warehouse, showroom, or light industrial space in one unit. And it's really become kind of a modern trend in development and for businesses, modern businesses, as kind of the economy changes, allowing for these buildings to have a mixture of uses. Say it's a e-commerce building or a light industrial building that also has some sort of sales component. It could be, thinking of an example in this area, it could be like a Golf Pride where they produce golf grips. They also have a sales component where they sell the golf grips. That would be kind of considered sort of a flex building. So allowing for these commercial and office uses on this property will make this new addition more attractive to a more diverse variety of potential businesses, which may have these office and commercial components in addition to warehouse or industrial space. So going through this process, we'll really kind of modernize this property for future and current market needs. Okay. There we go. All right. Mason kind of touched on the existing conditions of the site. It's sort of at the end of Trimble Plant Road where it kind of terminates right now. There is an existing 232,000 plus property or building on the property that currently most of it's taken up by the NC self-storage. There's also Penske truck rental there, the Morin Free Charitable Clinic, and some various warehouse spaces. There is also a small existing 4,200 square foot building, which will be removed with the addition of the new 40,000 square foot flex space. You can also see that the parking's sort of limited and scattered, doesn't really meet the current UDO standards. There's parking on Trimble Plant Road, and then just some gravel space kind of off to the right side of the existing building, and cars and trucks just parked in grass and dirt. So it's really not the most attractive site. It's obviously been there for a while and doesn't meet many of the existing UDO standards. So this would be the proposed site plan for the property, adding that 40,000 square foot flex building and adding these new parking areas, one between the existing parking on Trimble Plant Road and the existing building, and then some additional spaces on the right side of the building, as you can see here, and next to the flex building. There would also be a loading dock incorporated with this new building, and some additional loading dock areas tying into the warehouse space on the existing building. Stormwater is being proposed in the locations shown on this plan. One is located on that northeast corner that falls in the HCOD buffer. And one note on that, I know Mason just touched on what we've committed to. We are committed to keeping this 50-foot HCOD buffer undisturbed except for where that stormwater pond is being proposed.
Would you be opposed to a larger undisturbed buffer? I guess the question is, can we talk you into it?
Well,
And if it's a maybe, then we'll try.
yeah, I'll show, okay, so just wanted to show you kind of the stormwater area here and why we're proposing it in this area.
Okay.
In this corner, it's an existing low on the property. You can see the topo falls from 375 to 370, and it just naturally fits for stormwater to exist in that area, and it does creep into that buffer area by about 30 feet.
So
It's fine.
is your concern in extending the buffer, does it have to do with the fact that you want your stormwater basin there? Is that what's holding you back as far as saying yes to 75 feet as far as buffer?
We'll show you the images on the next couple slides.
I
where
can't
there's
wait. It's gonna be so
Already, what's that?
I said, go ahead.
I was just saying, because as I read those grid lines, it looks like it's going from an elevation of 380 down to somewhere neighborhood 350. So there appears to be ready natural vegetation that lends itself to that area. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
That's map reading 101. So that's why you're proposing it in that location. Makes the most sense in terms of natural
Stormwater,
runoff.
yeah, it just
natural
naturally
runoff, right?
flows to that area.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't have to do much grading to make
Right,
it,
yeah,
make
makes
it
sense.
work. And it just naturally fits in that area. So,
So if the buffer were 75, let me restate my question. If the buffer were 75, and if we accepted an exception that we would not consider a stormwater basin a violation of a buffer zone, are you at peace with that?
well, I guess, what is that additional buffer going to accomplish? Is kind
Well,
of
I
what.
mean, I actually
what
want to, that's one of my
question
questions.
is.
I'm writing down as you're
And
talking.
that's what this
And
next slide shows.
My question is, do you have a sight line from US 1 to a 50-foot
Yes.
building?
So this is showing there's approximately 75 feet of existing vegetation and berming located between the property line and US 1.
Right?
You can see where the stormwater location is shown here. The nearest corner of the existing building is roughly 230 feet from the property line and 305 feet from the highway. The new building would be 450 feet from the property line and approximately 525 feet from the highway. So with that 50-foot buffer and the additional 75 feet that exists within the Highway 1 right-of-way, that's a lot of buffer area, a lot of vegetation. I'm not sure what that additional buffer space is going to accomplish, especially if you look at the views from US 1. This is looking towards the proposed stormwater area. There's about 10 to 12 feet of berming there with a lot of existing vegetation. You can't even see within the property from the highway. This is looking back towards the existing building.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Can't see anything.
But this new building's going to be taller than anything that's on site, though, correct?
Be about 15 feet taller than
A true
what's there.
representation of if the 50 feet height is going to be seen or not seen. That's just, I guess, for me, like
Yeah.
the extra 25 feet just gives a little more cushion to not see it and not have this big 50-foot building
I just,
stand out.
it's so far away from the exist, you don't see any of this 35-foot building from here. This has more berming, more existing vegetation. You have 75 feet and then another 50 feet.
Give me just a second. I think our planning director would like to speak.
I just would like to point out that the trees that are presently within the NCDOT right-of-way are in no way protected. NCDOT could come through there and cut those down. And so all that actually is subject to this CDP is what's on the landowner's side of their property line. The rest is just, it could be there, it could go away, but what will be protected is that which the CDP stipulates needs to remain undisturbed.
Do you see the highway expanding in the future?
Well, I think the question is,
There is a precedent of DOT allowing trees to be removed in order to be able to see signage right there at NC Storage.
how far whether it's the new building or the existing buildings, what is the closest to the property line? I think you said the numbers a second ago.
So, yeah, the existing building is roughly 230 feet from the property line, the nearest corner.
Okay.
And the new building is roughly 450 feet from the property building at its nearest corner. So it's quite a bit of separation there.
And an undisturbed buffer, we're not asking you to put in plants, right? We're just asking you
that?
not to touch what's there.
Correct.
And the closest it's going to be is 230 feet. I guess what's going to be in that between 50 and 75 feet that I guess help me understand why cutting it down is important to your all's application.
We're not cutting it down,
No,
other than
that's-
where the stormwater is located.
No, I think that's fine. I
Yeah,
think we're willing to work around the stormwater
Yeah.
and say that we will cut that out as an exception.
Okay.
But it would be nice if you'd give us the additional 25 feet where the stormwater pond does not exist.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I feel that the 50 foot's reasonable, especially with the separation between the buildings and the highway and what exists in the highway, but if council wants to proceed with 75 feet,
Are we stopping
do
you
that.
from putting anything there?
nope, not really.
I guess my question would be, what does our UDO say in a situation like this? What is the, because I'm the new guy, so I don't have it memorized like BJ does.
50
I'm sorry,
50
sir.
feet.
In this case, the applicant is writing a plan development, which is, part of the plan development process is a conceptual development plan. Step one is writing their own zoning. In this case, they're needing to write their own zoning because they have a blend of land uses they want to do on the property that requires a PD instead
Right.
of any of our other tools. So when they're writing their own zoning, the town council, as having the legislative authority in setting this, has the prerogative to say, to choose appropriate buffers and whatnot, so.
I guess my question is, as a town, what is our standard operating procedure for putting a stormwater of this size, this close to a main highway? And if we don't have the exact, I'm not talking to the nitty gritty. I mean, because we're discussing 25 feet, but God forbid something should happen and that stormwater blows over and it's sitting on Highway 1 again, as it was during Helene, so I kind of agree with what the mayor was saying, like, what is preventing us feeling really safe about 25 feet if there's nothing going to be built there anyway? Or we're not preventing you from meeting your end state, and we safeguard our citizens as they go up and down Highway 1, and I get it, these types of storms are once in every 3 years now. And I'm not trying to prohibit anything, I just want to know for my own edification, do we normally put something of this magnitude for a 42,000 square foot structure with runoff into a water basin that close to a major highway? And what is DOT going to come back and say to us later on after we approve it? Because I think this is an ugly eyesight, and I think it's a great idea, but we definitely got to be safe about it, sir. I'm just curious.
Mac, are you wishing you could say something right now? Okay. You were busily trying to look something up over there.
It sounds like there were two parts to that question. Number one, a normal building, industrial building going next to the highway, it's in the highway corridor overlay. What is that setback? And then is there an issue with stormwater pond being close to the highway?
But I don't know that we can fight with topography.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, topography is, the land is what Mother Nature is going to win that fight. I don't know that you can fight with topography. We can't change.
Yeah, I'm not saying to move the stormwater pond. I'm just, in
Right.
our UDO standards, if they were not writing their own zoning, what is normal setback on highway, in the highway corridor overlay?
Yeah, the normal highway corridor overlay has a buffer, a parking setback, and a building setback.
Okay,
And
what
those
are those?
three are different between the two different highway corridor overlays. And can you pull those up for me real quick? Yeah, thank you so much. So under the normal highway corridor overlay standards that were adopted as a zoning overlay throughout the jurisdiction on either sides of the highway, the normal building setback is 75 feet, the parking area setback is 50 feet, and the landscape buffer is 50 feet. So under the normal highway corridor overlay, they can't put a building within 75 feet. And since they're writing their CDP, staff's position is essentially more buffer is better, because our experience constantly, week after week after week, is always large buildings want to be seen, those promoting the leasing of those buildings want the buildings to be seen, and the community would prefer not to see them. So we basically err on the side of, when we have an opportunity, we're writing a CDP to make those buffers as large as is reasonable. And in this situation where they don't appear to be using the land within the 75-foot building setback, to just go ahead and make that the undisturbed buffer to widen that out. because we don't control what happens in the NCDOT right-of-way. Paul brings up a good point. I understand. I appreciate the visual image, which is that presently, from the edge of the asphalt, there are some trees within the NCDOT right-of-way. But we had NCDOT go through the right-of-way on 15501 and take down a tremendous amount of vegetation because they can do that. It's their prerogative to do that. So to protect it in the future, we come from the premise of more is better, and they can't put buildings within 75 feet anyways, so.
As far as this being an undisturbed buffer, increasing from 50 to 75 feet, would this require, if we're calling this undisturbed, would this require shrubs in addition to the undisturbed trees?
Historically, when we see undisturbed on a CDP, we don't require planting within that area.
Perfect. Then where the stormwater is, yes.
All right.
Yep.
And staff, that we can manage that 75 without counting the area by the stormwater? That being the exception, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, did I cut you off? It's okay. Does the area that you have identified as stormwater in the future, does it currently hold water? Just based on the lay of the land?
So I think looking at the topo, sorry. So we're runs kind of down this way off the property. So creating a stormwater pond, we're kind of closing this off, and this would be your overflow. So it doesn't hurt. It might hold some water.
There's additional stormwater pond.
Yeah, there's
on
other
that side of the
stormwater
property, too.
ponds. Yeah, there's 2 other stormwater pond locations on the site too.
If I may add, this is how this will get hustled next. What it'll be is that the stormwater pond can remain, but then the boundaries of the stormwater pond will suddenly get much bigger when the grading occurs to create the actual stormwater pond. So we would ask that in addition to the 75 feet, with the stormwater pond to be allowed, that it be to be allowed something like as depicted on the CDP, so that it's not later like, oh, the stormwater will get bigger to create a gap in the trees right there. Just, I know it sounds crazy, but we're just speaking from experience.
That sounds like a lot of wisdom. So thank you. Yes, I think drafting it that way is a really good idea.
We can work on something while the conversation continues, and the
Right.
presentation continues, and the public hearing continues.
So I have a question, and I'm not sure to whom I should address it. I don't know if it's yours, Paul. Has a 50-foot building is basically a new animal, and at what point do we determine, and I think it's the next round, whether or not we have a fire truck that addresses the need? And the fire truck ladder goes up like at a hypotenuse. Can you, Reagan, is that a question you can answer?
A 50-foot building would not be an issue for the fire truck.
I'd like to not buy another fire truck this year.
Paul, you can continue.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So, as Mason mentioned, we are asking for a deviation from the current architectural standards that would require mostly and predominantly brick material. We're proposing a mix of materials, including fiber cement panels, and would like AFAS sections of the current brick portion of the building, and keeping the current metal siding on the self-storage and rear portions of the building. You can see the existing building. It looks like it's straight from 1960. It is all brick and glass, but it's not the most attractive building you will see. So these are renderings of the proposed refacing of the existing building, obviously keeping the metal siding where the storage is and where the warehouse areas are in the rear, but really kind of modernizing that existing portion of the building where the charitable clinic is, and just really making it an attractive building. Introducing some awnings and some just variations and colors and textures to really make it pop.
Paul, I don't want to stop you in the middle, I'm sorry. The 192 parking spaces that was mentioned earlier? The 192 parking spaces, is that pretty much what's going on there right now in terms of parking?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there might be, there's 28 spaces along Trimble Plant and maybe 7 elsewhere, and then just scattered gravel parking. So this is showing the proposed parking areas as well. So again, just another look at the proposed refacing of the existing brick portion of the building. Just really making an attractive presence to what's currently an ugly building. And again, just trying to modernize the site for
And how many
future
years will it take for that crepe myrtle to be that large? Just need to get my question in. I'd like it on the record. 30?
5 to 10 years.
You know how I feel about that. Let's be honest with the drawings.
I think that
Do these drawings, so
but I think they've made the point that they don't do drawings
we don't do
on
drawings.
the day
with-
that it's planted for good reason.
Yeah,
because-
do you want to see shrubs and trees that are that tall at the time
I
of one
want-
of these renderings? And
I want
it just doesn't make
transparency,
sense.
that's what I
This is what it's supposed to look like in the future.
Right.
Yeah. It's basically our
It's a
standard of,
lovely image. Buy the largest tree you can.
there are existing trees over here too, those large trees, those exist.
If we can get back to the presentation, that'd be great. It is now 8:49. It's past that because that clock's wrong.
All right, so in conclusion, approval of the CDP will really allow the property to modernize in a way that will meet current and future needs in an ever-changing economy and attract new businesses to this area. This proposed conceptual development plan is consistent with several goals and policies of the long-range plan, including promoting economic vitality, encouraging flexibility in land use, and enhancing site design and functionality. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Okay, not hearing any. What we will do is we'll move on to the public hearing portion of this.
Okay.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak?
I do have actually one question, I'm sorry. What is the standard that you're supposed to have on your height that you're building is 35? Why 50?
That's to allow for future, for the flex building, say an industrial manufacturer comes in, has some sort of robotic system for storage or robotic system for building whatever they're building. To keep, say they want 50 feet, to deter them from coming to this area, to a new business to come to this area, based on where a 400-foot line falls within the middle of a building. I guess that's why we're asking for that 50 feet. If the building was moved 30 or 50 feet to the south, then it would be allowed to be 50 feet.
And you don't have an image of that proposal of 50 feet?
No, we don't. It's not
And
been
yet you
designed.
are
and
asking for it?
It would match. The idea is to match what we're proposing here, as far as the building materials.
This building is how tall?
It's 35 feet, I believe, in the back.
So the idea is to match this building, and when you say that, what do you mean?
That it will match what we're proposing here as far as materials, colors, not looking at doing all brick. That it would match sort of this look, this proposed refacing of this building.
And for staff?
You can see where you can see where the flex building, the 400-foot overlay district falls right in the middle of that building. We're just asking for that 50-foot to be allowed for the entirety of the building instead of half of the building, to say, if a potential user needs that 50 feet, why deter them from coming to this property?
For staff, during the presentation, you had mentioned that, and Paul just referred to it as well, that in a different area, very close by, 50-foot would be allowed. Is that different zoning? Mason's on it.
In the industrial zoning right now, which is this site and sites, many sites adjacent, 50 feet is what's allowed by right.
Okay.
It's the highway corridor overlay that restricts this to 35 feet. And I don't have the map up, I can pull it up, but basically the highway corridor bisects this property almost halfway.
It's just that dotted line, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So really, 50 feet would be allowed on the bottom half of that corrugated line, okay.
Correct. Yep.
So we're just adding the extra 15 feet to be allowed on the whole property, okay. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, are there other questions for council or the applicant?
Can I ask one question? I just one quick. I know you're going to answer this as this falls, but you feel really comfortable with the water pooling that close to Highway 1? Like you feel, based on the size of the building and the runoff and the way that they're going to grade the terrain, you feel really comfortable that you can achieve a modicum of safety? Just in light of all that's been going on lately, I'm just curious.
Still going to have to go through site plan approval.
Right.
Engineer will have to.
I mean, just, I
approve
know
it,
it's early, that's
so-
what I'm saying. Right now, you feel like, yeah, we can get there from here.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only thing I'm really kind of like concerned about is like, 50 feet and it's, when I look at the natural grid lines and I'm going from 375 just down to 350, it's really 25 feet. I mean, are we digging deeper? I know that's way down the road, but just some things I'm thinking about now
Yeah.
that I might come back to later just because it is awfully close to Highway 1 and, yeah, but hey, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Council, do you have other questions or would someone like to make a motion?
Did you get that bonus language? That'd be for the second motion anyway, correct?
Really putting the heat on.
All right, so I'll start. I'm ready to make the first motion.
Do you have a keyboard attached to your phone? Yeah. Oh. All right,
No.
Mary's busy.
yeah. All right, let's get through the first motion.
So for this first one, I'll make a motion, and you closed the hearing.
I did, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
That I move after reviewing the proposed conditional zoning district and after consideration of the criteria for approval, the zoning map amendments found in UDO 2.17.9, that the proposed amendment to the Town of Southern Pines zoning map is reasonable in the public interest and consistent with the current character of the corresponding character district and the criteria set forth in the Town of Southern Pines UDO ordinance 2.17.9, considering the revisions to the conditions list and consistency with comprehensive plan policies 5.2, 4.9, 4.10. The proposed rezoning is generally consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan.
I want to make sure that was the right motion.
Is that the right one? Or did I do the totally wrong one?
I think that's the next motion.
You should stop me halfway.
I'm so sorry. Well, I thought, I know, you made it sound so good.
Wait.
I think on page
Oh, that's the
110
one, sorry.
That's the, although it is another rezoning. Was that correct or?
Wrong one, I think.
Okay, I'm so
Now
sorry.
I can't find the right page.
It's 110.
Way past it, sorry.
Well, it is another rezoning, and
Oh,
so
it's
part of me
above
felt
it.
like maybe I
All right.
had it wrong.
Sorry. Jumping ahead. This one's super short then, great. All right. I'll move after reviewing the application, applicable criteria, the planning board's written recommendation and public comments, that the requested CDP is consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan for the reasons set forth in attachment 1.
Is there a second?
I thought we were, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
My phone's telling me it's late.
It's bedtime.
9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Weren't we waiting for the?
That's
For
the
the
second.
for the second portion of it, yep.
Then I second that.
All in favor? favor, vote by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, motion carries. And are you ready? Okay.
Would you like me to read it for you, so at the end you could just say "so moved" if you agree with it?
Yes.
And therefore, I move to approve PD 0525 with the following conditions of approval. Number one, that the entire 75-foot building setback area shall remain an undisturbed buffer with no trees to be removed, except that the stormwater management area may be located within the existing topographic depression in the manner and to the specific extent as depicted on the CDP.
So moved.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I think the project looks like a much improved plan for that piece of property. We look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
we look forward to it. All right, our last public hearing is the Oaks rezoning, Country Club Drive, the 2.7 acres into 6 single-family homes. Mr. Broadwell, welcome back. Oh, Gene was supposed to do it, but Gene's out because he's sick, right?
He is, so full disclosure, I refreshed myself on this today.
No, that's fine. We will, if we ask questions that you need more time on, just let us know.
It should be okay. I ended up covering this one in planning board as well, so
Okay.
we work with the applicant as well, so it should not be an issue. All right, good evening, everyone. James Broadwell again from the Planning Department. We'll now be talking about the Oaks conditional rezoning and followed by a major subdivision preliminary plat. Like a couple projects lately, this first file is that conditional zoning, which is legislative, and contingent on the outcome of it is the following preliminary plat, which is QJ, and that will have its own separate, but same project, and the site plan involved in this one is the same as the preliminary plat document. So almost all of the discussion should take place in this. So to kick it off, the property is 2.7 acres just off of Country Club Drive. It is currently zoned FRR, Facilities, Resources, and Recreation, which is a legacy of this parcel having been part of the Southern Pines Golf Club. It is no longer a part of that, which is part of what precipitated this application. The proposal is to rezone to an RS1 conditional district, which matches the surrounding zoning. You've got RS1 to the north and east and RS2 to the south, and then it's still FRR to the west, the Southern Pines Country Club. I forgot to mention too, we're about a little less than a mile's walk from this property to the downtown core area. Downtown Park, I believe, is about 0.9 miles, just as a frame of reference. As an aerial shot, you'll notice it's largely a vacant lot, with the exception of 15 to 20 feet buffer of trees existing to the back, with those neighboring lots on South Ridge Street. And this is the site plan and the preliminary plat outline. It is for 6 detached single-family lots. Part of the conditions that go in with that, no shared driveways. Each lot will have its own driveway. There is water and sewer available for extension to each of those lots. And the minimum lot size is 16,000 square feet, which pretty well splits the middle of its surrounding neighbors. 10,000 is the minimum for RS1, 20,000 for RS2. And the setbacks are actually the same in RS1 and RS2, which these conditions follow as well. Condition number 3, I'll mention, going into planning board, the applicant proposed preserving the 21 feet of undisturbed buffer to those neighboring adjacent lots. In that hearing, a couple of the neighbors brought up the point that there are quite a few gaps in that buffer. And so the applicant has since modified the condition to read, that any gaps will be replanted to match the UDO buffer planting requirement to just augment that for those neighbors. So that was the only change moving from planning board into town council, which we do definitely appreciate the applicant's willingness to do that. And that's just a visual snapshot for you there as well. And by adding that condition, it really does bring it closer to conformance with the comprehensive plan. Again, preserve trees whenever possible, minimize tree loss during construction. And that's something that conditional zoning really provides. Whereas if this was a straight rezoning to just RS1 or RS2, that control would not be there. One other point I thought I'd bring up, as you're driving down Country Club Road, there's a lot of existing specimen trees, one of which is a 5-foot wide oak tree, which is pretty remarkable. But there's actually 11 in total, all of which almost are certainly in the right-of-way with the exception of one. In fact, the applicant did map that oak tree. If you see that green dot right there, that is its location relative to the property line. You see those snapshots of the rest of the trees, they're pretty definitively also in the right-of-way. When we brought this to the town arborist, pursuant to the section of UDO that talks about specimen trees, he's communicated that he will not authorize the cutting of any specimen trees in the right-of-way because this is a preliminary plat. These lot lines are movable. There's no reason these trees should have to go.
What happens when we do sewer work and we cut trees in the right of way?
Because these lot lines are movable and those sewer lines and their sewer extensions are also movable, those will be looked at site plan review as well.
I just think it's crazy that we can run through and cut down a bunch of people's trees, but we can't let them cut down their own trees. I mean, I want to keep them 100%. I would just prefer that we kept, I don't know, that we didn't set standards for someone else that we don't also have to adhere to.
Well,
Well,
no, but I mean, the town arborist has said that he does not, he's not going to sign a tree removal permit for these because they are movable.
Right. I would guess that your heart and your mind is in Knollwood right now. Yeah, we need to talk about that later, though. I'd like that in round table next round, yeah.
I got you.
It's, it has nothing to do, I understand the frustration.
Yeah.
There are currently 333 trees, yes, somebody counted and called me, marked for removal in Knollwood because of sewer lines. So that's what you're taking a hit for. But I understand what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, and let's go, yeah.
Yeah. Nope, I got you. I misunderstood.
That's okay.
A couple final notes. If you look at their second condition, they're going to achieve stormwater on each lot in the kind of a more creative sense that we've seen lately with swale cisterns and some rain gardens type stuff. A more creative mix than just a crater that has been more typical historically. Those street trees that we just talked about will almost certainly meet the street tree requirement for a major subdivision. And the buffer in the back accounts for the open space as well. As far as state regulation considerations, our LUAC did not communicate any issues with the red cockaded woodpecker, and this site is not in the watershed as well. So neither of those are concerns. So with that, staff would recommend approval with the conditions as written. Certainly appreciate including the buffer and then augmenting it per that feedback from planning board. Unless you all have any questions, I will pass to the applicant.
Does council have questions for Mr. Broadwell?
No, you've had a big night, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if the applicant would like to come to the podium. Evening.
Thanks, James. Hi, I'm Jeff Barzak from Barzak Engineering Services, representing the applicant. We've been working with staff on this for a couple of months and made a lot of revisions to what their concerns with the trees and the buffer in the back. We've met all the conditions. We just asked for your approval. I don't need to keep you any later. This is really a pretty simple site, so I really don't need to see much. One question that was brought up at our neighborhood meeting was the speed limit. It's 35 miles an hour there, and they're concerned with that. So if there's anything you can do to reduce that down to 25,
That probably makes sense.
the applicant is in favor of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. before you sit back down, let's just make sure the council doesn't have other questions for you. All right. All right, council, do you have questions for the applicant?
I have a couple questions. Sorry, it's going to be a little bit later, and you've done a great job being patient.
That's okay.
So first of all, full disclosure to, and I don't know how this plays as far as quasi judicial goes, but I am friends with the Callaways, who are obviously very involved in this. I see them socially sometimes, and we have communicated by text.
Well, this one's not quasi-judicial.
I know it's not, but I'm not sure how to put it, I kind of want to put it out there. Transparency is my goal here. So we have communicated by text, but not about any heavy, they just hoped for my support, and I wrote them back and told them I was interested in hearing all the evidence, number one. Number two, that is an area that is ripe for sedimentation and water issues, and I think you guys are okay, because I think the topography is going to mean that you're not going to flood George's lot across the street that already has a $30,000 waterway that he's put in to try to protect that part of the neighborhood. So there's a big flooding issue there. But can you speak to the topography just for a second, just to reassure me, and bless you for keeping the trees too?
Yeah, if you want to pull up the plan, the site, there's the low point, right where he was at, right at our bottom left corner. That is the lowest point, and everything sheet flows from the northeast up there to that southwest corner. That's the natural flow of the land. It's very flat.
It's pretty flat,
Yeah.
right? This is on my dog walk.
Yeah.
And I've heard from everybody in the neighborhood.
So,
So
controlling the stormwater by these rain gardens and cisterns will meet all requirements imposed
Okay.
by the engineering department.
And I'm very, very pleased about that. Thank you very much. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is some people I've run into on the dog walk are from South Ridge, and obviously they appreciate a buffer is going to be left, and we appreciate the fact, I understand that you guys have already said, yes, we're going to put in plantings to any point where there's a view that is open from backyard to backyard, that you're going to address that. Can we make that evergreen, whatever we put in there? Like, can we go camellias or something?
We will commit to the, I believe it's 4, is that what's the normal buffer requirements? There's level 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't want to misspeak, but we're going to meet the town's requirements for that vegetation requirement. That's written in the codes.
Okay. I understand that.
So
That's
specific trees, there's a lot of beautiful trees there that already.
There are, and there's been some clearing of that buffer that there would be a dispute between what you're saying tonight and what the residents on Ridge would say.
Yeah, so
I
can address that as well.
And my theory on any building is that everybody should just be a good neighbor, and I think you are really doing that, and I want to encourage that, and be cognizant of that. That's a sticking point. That is a dog walk complaint. You can put that down as an official dog walk complaint. And appreciate your, the other thing I want to know is there any, I understand that we say no shared driveways, and maybe this is a question for planning more than it is for you. Do we sacrifice a tree by doing this? Are we able to save all the trees by saying no shared driveway? Because I sort of had wondered if we wanted a Y driveway entry. So I don't know if this is a fair question.
No, it's fair. I think I can answer that.
Okay, great.
We've been working with planning on that and their arborist. And the only thing that has to go in here is the laterals for the lots. And we're going to adjust those laterals to the lots.
Okay.
Working with the arborist and the engineer
Okay.
department so that we can save all the trees.
Okay, cool.
So, and the driveways, we can move around. We looked.
Great.
Even the 5-foot wide tree, you can get a driveway around it. There's 45 feet.
Right. Okay.
So there's plenty of opportunities to move that driveway around.
This
I
is-
don't see an issue with that at all.
Music to my ears. This is great. Thank you.
And as far as just to be clear on the removal of the what you call landscaping, it was noxious weeds that have grown up.
Well,
So I mean,
yeah, that's your
I
side
don't
of the
think we
story. I
don't want
understand.
noxious weeds. They don't want it, we don't want it. It's a new subdivision, we're gonna make it look good.
It's going to be fabulous.
Yeah. So I mean, just adding landscaping only adds value to our lots too.
And final question, is there anybody that you've spoken with in the area, neighbor or anyone who is opposed to lowering the speed limit there?
Opposed? No. Nobody's opposed that has spoken to us.
Right.
Yeah.
No, is there anyone opposed to it? Have you had any pushback on?
No
on a lower
pushback.
speed? Okay.
I can ask the owner, but I have not received anything.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to get any because it's literally, what, 150 meters to that intersection. So I think the common sense thing that you're right on.
It's a neighborhood, it should be
dropping It's
25, not
neighborhood, yeah.
35.
I thought it was 25. I said, I thought it was 25 because
It's 35.
I'm all in for the 25, sir.
Intersection
do
in
it.
at Morganton too, that's wicked. Yeah, okay.
Hmm.
Thank you.
No problem, thank you. I'll wait.
Want to speak?
Councilmember Peterson, you mentioned that you might have a relationship. There are two standards in the statutes for conflict of interest. The first one I doubt is applicable, and that is, do you have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact?
Sadly, I do not.
Okay. The second standard is a little bit more subjective, and
Okay.
it's whether you have a close relationship with the applicant such that you wouldn't be able to give an objective decision.
I think I'd be able to give an objective opinion, and I value their friendship, but yeah, I
Done.
think we're fine.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Record's clean.
Okay, are there other questions for Mr. Barzak? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. Are we ready to make a motion on 8C? I'm closing the public hearing. I did provide opportunity for public to speak before, right? I think I started to before we asked questions, so I will say again, is there anyone in the public who would like to speak? Okay, again, seeing none, now I am officially closing the public hearing. Just making sure we didn't overlap that with questions for the applicant. Yes, yeah, the council is still welcome to speak. I think deliberation is key.
I just want to say, looking at this one, I was very careful because I don't want there to get this feeling that we are going out of our way to turn FRR into residential by any means. But given sort of the unique circumstance of this parcel as highlighted by the planning staff's memorandum and your willingness to sort of be friendly on the buffers, for this unique parcel, I'm comfortable with it. But every one of these is unique. And so by no means don't want this to be seen as a abandonment of FRR, because there are, even though this is conducive to comprehensive plan, the plan also likes natural areas and recreational uses as well in certain spots. So this is not a abandonment of that. It just, for this parcel, I see where it makes sense. So thanks for all the clarity on that.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Bill, I know you read the motion
I
once.
messed
Would
it
you
up
like to read
last
the same
time.
motion again?
You can do it, you can redeem yourself.
You got page 148. I know.
All right, I'll try again. Same one. I will make a motion that after reviewing the proposed conditional zoning district and after considering the criteria for approval of zoning map amendments found in UDO 2.17.9, that the proposed amendment to the Town of Southern Pines zoning map is reasonable in the public interest and consistent with the current character of the corresponding character district and the criteria set forth in the Town of Southern Pines UDO section 2.17.9. Considering the revisions to the conditions list and the consistency with comprehensive plan policies 5.2, 4.9, and 4.10, the proposed rezoning is generally consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Is there a second? All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And therefore, I move to approve, make sure it's the right one.
Yeah, you're good.
Approves the 06-25 with the conditions submitted by the applicant for the RS1 conditional zoning district.
Second.
Those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we're moving into the quasi-judicial portion of this hearing. As an evidentiary hearing, there are specific guidelines that that create guidelines for how this hearing is going to go. The applicant should stay one more. We got one more.
We're still, yeah.
I know.
You're not alone.
State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decision. Our discretion is limited and decisions must be based upon competent, relevant, and substantial evidence on the record. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. Those of you who would like to speak in this hearing, please stand and raise your right hand. Yes, the applicant. Please stand as well. And Attorney McCarley, will you now qualify the board?
Does any member of council have a fixed opinion prior to this hearing that is not susceptible to change?
No.
Has any member of council had ex parte communications about this matter?
It sounds like Ann may have.
Yeah, I want to be on the record as having talked with both neighbors and with owners.
And did any of those communications create in you an opinion, a fixed opinion that is not susceptible to change?
No.
Okay. Does any member of council have a close familial, business, or other associational relationship with an affected person?
No.
I suggest you answer that yes and say they are friends.
Okay. Yes, they're friends. There we go, thank you.
Is that relationship so close that you can't make an objective decision in this case?
It is not.
Does any member of council have a financial interest in the outcome of this matter?
No.
We wish. Yeah.
Does the applicant wish to challenge any member of the council on the basis of conflict of interest or bias? No. Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you. All right, this is a request to approve a major subdivision creating 6 single-family lots on the former golf course parcel along Country Club Drive, including a 21-foot preserved tree buffer at the rear of the property. Mr. Broadwell, you have given us the information from our legislative hearing. Is there additional information for the quasi-judicial portion?
There is not, and I'll be extremely brief. Nothing that transpired in the conditional zoning portion ISS affects the criteria for the major subdivision, which we have up here. And I'll mention again, the adjustments of lot lines internal to the parent tract is a minor modification that we can take care of during site plan, which takes care of the trees. So don't assess an issue there either.
Okay.
I do. I would like to enter into the record as Exhibit A, the staff report, and Exhibit B, this presentation. I apologize. Thank you.
Council, do you have questions for Mr. Broadwell?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant have additional information that you would like to be considered during this portion of the hearing? No. Okay, thank you. Does the council have questions for the applicant?
No, thank you.
Okay, seeing none. Do we have a motion on the quasi-judicial? Mac, do I close? It's still a public hearing. Do I close the hearing? I will offer opportunity for public comment. Okay, seeing none. Thank you. I'll close the public hearing, and if there is a motion, I will hear that now.
I'll move to adopt attachment 1 of the staff report as drafted as findings of fact regarding the proposed preliminary plat MAPP-05-25.
All those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And therefore, I move to approve the preliminary plat MAPP-05-25.
All those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Now you are welcome to head home. All right. Thank you for sitting. Thank you for your patience through that meeting. We appreciate it. All right. Unless there is anything else for the good of the public, I will wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. We'll plan to see you January 13th, is that right? Nope, yes? All right, anything else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous.